Welcome to the WREC EMEA Championships Day 2. We're getting ready to find out which of our teams will make the playoff stage.
Yeah, because yesterday was one hell of a day. We have WREC GG smashing everyone, being undeniably the best team in the Group A and making their way as the first seed to the playoffs, even though they had quite a bad time versus Team Queso.
Yeah, roughest series against Team Queso, but Queso would make their way past NASA in our third series of the day, a 2-0, but it was close at times perhaps than it should have been. Queso looking good. We're going to have to see who they're going to face.
Yeah, definitely, because we are looking for two more teams to join Team Queso and WREC GG in those players. We have in Gamelord, Parla, and Formulation Gaming. We have two more teams.
We have the Titans of the European regular season, and we're ready to go. We're not going to make you wait any longer. Day 2 of the WREC finals starts right now.
Welcome everyone to the second day of the WREC finals. Today we're looking for two more teams to join WREC GG and Team Queso in those players that we're going to have this weekend. Welcome everyone to my wonderful analyst desk. Cameron, how are you?
I'm so excited for today because I think these teams are the ones that we might have seen the least in the past few weeks. So who knows what expects us today?
A lot of mystery ongoing that breaks since we didn't get to see much from Gamelord.
Exactly, the #1 team coming into this tournament, and it's been one month since we have seen them. So I'm super excited to see how much they improved during that time, and I think they are gonna show off. We've seen Formulation Gaming doing insanely well after those roster changes, and now they have to face against Gamelord, and I wanna see how well they can do against this super team.
Yeah, that's interesting area because I am wondering if we may have an upset for today.
Upset for today? I think Gamelord is going to sweep everyone. I think they're the best team in Europe, and I don't think we're going to see that much competition towards them. But on the other hand, I think it's going to be interesting to watch FMG against Parla on the other hand. So Parla was looking a bit shaky going into the Turkish region, and they had to go through the last chance qualifier to qualify. Yes. They lost to Nasser, and we saw yesterday, Nasser against European teams, they had a tough time.
Yeah, definitely, and that puts quite of a challenge on the Turkish representative. But looking in today, Carmen, we had amazing games ongoing, and we saw WREC just smashing everyone.
Oh, I mean, what's a tough question? No, do I really want to see it again?
You don't want to see it again?
Do I, Faye?
Okay.
No,
okay.
It will make things boring and uninteresting and unappealing, and I don't want to see it again.
But the fact is that even though WREC GG, the Cracker was won both series, the fact is that the series versus Team Queso was quite tight.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting to see how well those teams are gonna perform. Gamelord, obviously super strong. I think they're gonna do an amazing job. Players to look out for are definitely Zefta, Hester, and Lonely Kid. Those players are absolutely amazing. In their respective role, they are the top players. And then obviously FG, we've seen something from them already. They have been looking pretty amazing against Unicorns of Love. So I wonder how they can do against Gamelord, but also Parla. I think in an offline event you can never underestimate the underdog because they can always make an upset happen. Maybe they can beat Formulation Gaming, or maybe they can even take a game out of Gamelord, but clearly my favorites are gonna be Gamelord in Group B.
We're watching right now a replays from the NASA versus WREC, and we were discussing yesterday about the LAN event, how the teams were gonna go here after so much time. And WREC felt like so online. They won 2-0 versus NASA Esports. We had some amazing performances, and I would say that Ramnam, won some highlights.
Highlights today, I mean, we saw actually the Turkish team yesterday. NASA had an amazing early game. I'm really looking forward to seeing if Parla can bring some of that early game magic that these Turkish teams have been bringing us so far. Also, Formulation Gaming also had a great early game against Unicorns of Love, really dodging that early game invade. So I think, obviously we all talking about Gamelord and how good they are, but I think Parla and Formulation Gaming, they know they're probably going to be the underdogs coming in, so it's interesting to see how these underdog teams find their magic, and they need to look for elsewhere to find those leads and just of standout play. So, I mean, that's going to be exciting to see how they're going to tackle this monster.
And I have the feeling that Kamen would love to have more games like this series with Team Queso and WREC. That WREC won it, but it was really tight. It could have gone. It could have gone to any of both teams. I have the feeling that it could be Team Queso in the end.
I mean, they were so close, and I think there's something that Team Queso has to look forward to in the next games, because honestly, there were so many mistakes that could have been avoided, but most importantly, I think WREC also shows some flaws that other teams will be able to exploit and capitalize on in the next few games. So if they are able to do it, maybe WREC is not the top one we're expecting them to be.
And we had a question about, after the patch, how the meta was going to be. And I want to say that we have one special guy, popping off all the time in the mid lane. It was Singed.
Singed, exactly. This pick has been so popular in the Chinese pro region already. So I'm honestly surprised that the European teams already have it picked it up and they're already bringing it out. And I think in this current meta, Singed is working so well, because in the mid lane, you usually have all of those mages, but right now in the meta, you have AD champions being picked a lot, and Singed is just working like a charm there. He can just clear the wave super freely, and then he can just roam and make those plays happen. And as you guys saw in the WREC and Team Queso match, Singed in the late game, he is a monster. He's super tanky. He can make plays happen with the second ability, with his fling and the proto belt. And on top of that, he has so much damage when you're chasing him, and you're not gonna reach him because of the Rylai's.
That's the first advice you ever get when you play League or Wild Rift. Just don't chase the Singed, because it's not gonna end well for you. We just saw replays from yesterday. Acolyte just so excited after beating NASA Esports in the last game. This is our bracket, WREC 2-0, making it to the quarterfinals as the first seed. Team Queso 1-1, winning versus NASA, losing versus WREC in quite a tight series. But these are the first two teams in semi-finals that are gonna face, who knows, it's gonna be Gamelord, it's gonna be Parla, it's gonna be Formulation Gaming. This is our schedule for today: Gamelord versus Parla, then Parla versus Formulation Gaming, and closing Formulation versus Gamelord. Let's start, Carmen, for the favorites to win this tournament, Gamelord, I have to say.
I thought you were going to say Team Queso. No, I mean, about Gamelord, this is a team that has shown us a really good side, really good Wild Rift kind of play, but can they do this here? Of course, they've got experience at LAN events, they're used to this, right? But I think it's quite different when it comes to this. You're in front of your rivals, you need to be on point, and maybe Gamelord, for me, they're the team that has the most traditional kind of playstyle. They're not that innovative, so if other teams are able to take them out of that comfort zone, this might be it for them.
It is interesting because we didn't get to see much from Gamelord, and I don't know that if that is going to affect them, plus the stage fact.
I mean, obviously, when you're playing in an offline event, anxiety can kick in. You can be nervous, but I have faith that Gamelord, they are the #1 team. They have performed in offline events beforehand. Obviously, they haven't played in a while, or we haven't seen them in a while, but I believe in them, and I think they are gonna show why they are the #1 team, and they are gonna storm Parla.
Let's see, because Parla has a huge challenge in front of them. Guys, we're gonna check on our predictions in the analyst desk, and I don't know. Let's see how it goes. Ryu, For sure, Gamelord is your favorite, but do you think, oh, Kevin is the only one voting for Parla?
Oh my god. Okay,
You're so alone. I'm sorry. I'm gonna talk to you to real later, but Cameron, defend your posture.
Okay, so Parla underestimated completely while all like Open Malaysian Gaming deserve to be the underdogs. Really though, Parla's coming here after fighting teeth and claws to get to this tournament. Do you think they're gonna let go so easily and be like, oh yeah, 2-0, we lose? No freaking way. I think they can make it, they will make it, and it will show you all that they can win.
I really love that Carmen is always supporting, you know, the analysts. I love that, I love that. I need it on the analyst desk. But really the fact is that, yeah, Parla, you know, put up a huge fight on the Turkish league, but the fact is that they flopped versus Nasser, so I really don't know how are they going to be versus, you know, Gamelord, the favorite.
That's why I put Gamelord number 1. I think Parla simply does not have the power, the mechanical prowess to beat a team like Gamelord. We saw yesterday Nasser was trying their best, Swest and Regner put up a fight, but they still went down and they got destroyed because, well, they met against these European top players. Gamelord is no different. I think Parla is going to have a really tough time individually. Even though they're a great team, it's going to be difficult. And the reason I put formulation against Parla as well is that we cannot ignore that game against Unicorns Love. They were amazing. They looked like they're a team that has synergy. They have only been together for, what, 2 weeks on this specific roster, and they smashed it. I mean, as a team and such a new team reaching this heights of synergy, just saying, hello, you guys came from the Russian region, and we just sending them back home straight. I mean, this team was amazing. I don't think Parla can compete with them either. We're seeing a trend that the European teams are looking the strongest.
Okay. The fact is that I have to agree with you. But guys, let's see how Formulation does. Let's see how Parla does. Let's see how Gamelord does. This is our Group B.
Before this, I didn't have any official teams. I was only in free agents teams and things like this. And yeah, it's very good to play with them. They are very kind with me.
Bir de oraya üzerinde Galio gelecek. Flow alacaklar. Dayana var, Dayana alacaklar. Devamda.
I'm gonna play with different team, new team, but I think the objective is like the same as the last one. It's like a win for sure. And yeah, it's also a personal challenge for being the second one, like a European champion, and with the new team. Yeah, it's a personal challenge also.
Smite comes through to steal from Tyrus. Early from Zepter, and Viva just now making their escape.
Playing on the stage is always a different experience. It makes you feel everything like more vivid. But also, of course, if you're first time, it's kind of shaky.
That's going to be Unicorns of Love dropping in game number 1. A quadra kill for Kamau. Put 1 foot into Group B.
I'm a guy who like, yeah, I'm funny. I mean, I'm not funny. I mean, I'm crazy. Yeah, I'm crazy. So I hope I will do some crazy stuff with my team. And I hope like I do crazy stuff when I win or when I lose.
It's a good tournament for us because it's only good teams. There is no bad teams. So even if we beat any team, it will be good for us. Everyone wants to be at his best level. That's why everyone is playing good in this tournament.
Play safe and play for the team.
Time to shine. Merci pour vos messages sur le chat et tout, ça fait grave plaisir. Et c'est bien de se sentir soutenir par la communauté française. Donc peace sur vous les gars.
A los equipos que tengan buena suerte contra nosotros porque la vais a necesitar.
Translating here, good luck to the teams because you're gonna need it to play versus us. That was the ball saving by Gamelord's players. But the fact is that they are gonna fight their favorites to take Rio the first seed in the group.
Yeah, I mean, in this group, we saw getting number 1 in this group will mean you'll play against the number 2 from the other group today. I mean, tomorrow. And if you get the number 2 in this, you have to play against WREC. I think, for example, a team like Gamelord, they know how to play standard, they know how to win through the top lane. Yes. But we saw yesterday, Acolyte. If you're gonna win this group, you have to go against Team Queso tomorrow. And going against Team Queso means you're gonna be playing against the 4 that is Acolyte. He is almost impossible to break down and find leads against. And we know Gamelord from the WREC playoffs, they found leads through the top lane. But can they stop Acolyte?
Well, the fact is that Acolyte had some crazy day yesterday. Gotta say, he has an amazing performance and a really flexible one because we get to see him in so many different styles.
Absolutely, we saw him Lucian, Camille. I mean, it was quite varied between the bruisers that he usually plays the weak side to him being actually one of the potential MVPs of the series and showing so much of his actual champion pool out of that comfort zone. Really did him so good. So I think, honestly, Acolyte, best top laner here.
Okay, that's bold statement as well. The fact is that it was all about flexibility yesterday, that WREC, wasn't it? Yeah. And we need that again from the teams from Group B, because you need to have a good lecture of the new paths to come here.
Exactly, but I just want to say that we definitely can't not look at Lonely Kid, because this guy is being praised as the #1 Baron laner by a lot of analysts and pro players. He's doing such an amazing job, and he was doing also amazing against Random, and Random is the guy who's been a superstar yesterday, performing like an absolute beast, playing different playstyles, and I think Lonely Kid can also play different playstyles, but Gamelord, preferably, they like him to be on the hyper carry, they like to play around him. Heste, Zefta, they will play around Lonely Kid, and he is gonna be the carry of their team.
Yeah, well, it's called Lonely Kid. He plays in the solo lane.
But he's not that lonely.
He's not lonely. It only happens with the solo
lonely.
laners. Yeah, definitely. You're not lonely. You're going to have a lot of support. And that's the fact. And maybe that's the key of our first game, because we're going to have such a clash of game styles in this first game.
This team, as Darkwrecker just said, Lonely Kid is definitely not lonely. Heste and Zefta are known as some of the best jungle and supports in Europe. What are they doing? Let's go top lane to Lonely Kid, and they're just constantly feeding him, and that's actually an interesting...
Cap and carry him. Cap and he will carry.
But that's actually an interesting point. We've seen a lot of Hullbreaker yesterday, and Hullbreaker is actually best if you're alone. So let's see if Lonely Kid is gonna pick up that Hullbreaker, so that Zefta and Heste, if they go to his lane, well, he won't be as strong.
Well, let's see how it goes for them, guys, and we now have to welcome our teams to the stage. This is going to be our first game of the day. The Gamelord versus Parla, the underdogs from the Turkey scene versus the favorite from Europe. It's going to be one hell of a game, but you trust in Parla, Carmen. You trust in Parla. Yeah. I think it's all going to be about how good they can fight those 5v5s.
Quite well, to be honest. If you think about it, they've got such a strong mid lane that they actually can do it.
I think they can do it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely, because I missed the upset yesterday. The favorites ended up winning. I want some spicy thing going on this second day of the WREC finals. We are watching Gamelord and Parla all ready for this first best of 3 series, and a lot of things have changed. Since the last time we saw Gamelord. Even though since the last time we get to see Parla, we had the patch, we had a lot of priorities changing, Darkwrecker, and that was everything yesterday. That if you have changed your priorities, if you're more flexible, if you have adapted to new power picks, how do you think these teams are going to adapt into this event?
I mean, obviously, after the first day, people kind of get a feeling on how the meta is being played right now. And obviously, Gamelord is a team that's so adaptive, that has a big champion pool. Yes. They are coming here, having a boot camp as well. They practice a lot of strategies, and I just feel like we thought they are the #1 team, and I think they will show up an even higher level than they always done. And I think Parla won't stand a chance against a super team like Gamelord.
The fact is that we were talking about flexibility, Ryu, and Bambi has one hell of a champion pool. Like, this one has the widest I've ever seen.
This guy plays Fizz, he plays Pantheon, he loves to get stuff done early game and snowball the game. That is definitely the strength of this team. That is Bambi and Nacris looking to make those plays early. They pick Zed in the mid lane, Diana with this early game aggressive jungler, and they just take over the game from there. That is amazing to see. So another thing about Parla's team is that they play around their, just Nacris is just so good. We talk about Bambi having a broad champion pool, but he plays around Nacris well, and those two Turkish players, we just know jungle mid duos in Turkey, they're great.
Yeah, definitely. Jungle Mudir is doing great, and that is important. We've been focusing a lot on the Baron lane, on the solo lane, and a lot of things may have changed with Cyrax. He played a lot of Darius. Darius is sadly gone. We get to see one though yesterday, even though it didn't work out so well. So we really need some new things ongoing. And guys, I want to discuss with you about the key points for this first series. We're gonna take on, because Gamelord, first of all, the heavy favorites, that's going to be a key point. And everything is going to be about Carmen, facing this huge, scary team.
Of course, when this is the first person you have to face, first team, you go in either with two mentalities. On one hand, you are either like, oh God, I think people think I'm gonna lose, and then therefore I've got less pressure on me. But the other alternative is like, people think this is the heavy favorite. I'm gonna smash these expectations. I'm gonna take this game away from them, and then we'll see who's to be feared in this team.
Then we saw yesterday that Breaker, Club being so important with Rakan, for example, and we get to understand how important are supports and also engaged supports, and Hesse is amazing on this type of champions.
Exactly. I think Hesse is gonna show why he is the #1 support right now. He loves those playmaking supports. Alistar, Rakan, Leona, Thresh, and if Parla doesn't ban Hester out, and usually teams, they have to ban Hester out because he is gonna roam everywhere on the map, making plays left and right. So Parla needs to stop Hester in the draft already, because if they don't stop him there, he is gonna help his team out everywhere, and then they're gonna snowball.
Can you stop Hester though?
We're watching right now
the question. I don't think so.
We're watching right now the last point that Parla is so good at team fighting. That's what I meant when I said that this is going to be a clash of play styles. And Parla are so good. Maybe this can make the difference here.
Especially in the early game, Parla is a team that they just love to brawl, fight, and create situations, create pickoffs, fight in the river together with the mid, jungle, and support. And I think the early game will definitely decide the game, whether or not Parla might be able to snowball. And if they don't do, I think Gamelord is just going to play it better macro-wise on the map.
It seems to be a thing with these Turkish teams. Their team fighting has been great. We even saw it with the National yesterday. And we see all that from Parla again in the Turkish scene against NASA when they played that final. Parla is a great team fighting team. And if they can manage to get those 5v5s against Gamelord without getting split pushed behind the map, maybe getting out-rotated, I think Parla has a legitimate shot, but can they get those straight-up 5v5s? I'm not so sure.
Let's see, it's all about the clash of styles here. What team can make work their game plan? Because, we're having Bambi played a lot of Olaf. We saw some Diana also from Nacris, and the mid jungle duo is going to be so important. But of course, you need to be aware of personal rotation towards the bottom lane side. And also, I'm pretty curious about how the Turkish team come and have adapted themselves to the fact that a lot more of AD carries are showing up lately.
Well, this is something that, again, it's a little bit of difference, right? In Europe, we've been seeing loads of APs in the past few weeks. We've seen the ADs coming back. But for Parla, I'm not so sure how that has happened exactly. If we look at the team stats and what they've been playing, they've definitely have been able to just get a little bit of a clue of what this kind of meta is like. So whether we'll see more ADs today, I think it is quite feasible, to be honest. So.
Yeah, the thing we have known from Gamelord especially is that they are really good at playing around the top lane, which we talked about before. They like these mages in the bot lane meta. Gamelord as a team has been playing a lot of Ziggs, a lot of Orianna, and now with yesterday with Rix and Team Questo playing AD carries, maybe Gamelord is going to change up their playstyle.
Let's see. Now, guys, we are ready with Hels to disclose, you know, the clues for this game. Hels, how are you?
Yeah, thank you very much, Noah. We got Kuku here, who's the manager of Gamelord. And Kuku, the first thing that I want to ask you, we have a whole new meta, and we know Gamelord was amazing in the recent meta. Do you feel that you've prepared good enough in this new meta?
Yes, I think we are prepared well. We did a bootcamp before to come in Barcelona, and I think we will show you what we can do.
All right, that's great to hear. So I want to ask you this as well, because now you're playing on a live stage, and you have players that are a bit newer, like Lonely Kid, for example. We know he's really good when he plays from home, but do you feel he's going to be good on the live stage as well?
Yes, I think, of course, it's his first time in the stage. The thing is, we all have a good experience on the stage, and we will help him to do the better, to be the best. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So what I want to ask you now is, you're coming here as the top 1 team, right? Like in the online event, you made it to top 1. You're known to be the best team right now. Do you feel a little bit of extra pressure because you come in as the top 1 team?
We are not really under pressure. We just have to play like always, and we can win, I think. Yeah.
All right, that's great to hear. So that's it for the manager of the Gamelord, Kuku, and back to the casters to get us into the game.
Thank you very much, Hels. We're ready at the caster desk for our first game of the day. We have the return of the open bracket champions. Stress here, joined by Stuart. We're not the open bracket champions. I wish we were. We're nowhere near that good. Yeah. I hope so. Yeah, we got the return of Gamelord. Gamelord are one of my favorite teams to watch in Europe, because if you haven't seen their games, if you didn't catch the open bracket, Gamelord are very aggressive and very quick at playing the game normally. And I think that really defines their playstyle, is smothering their opponents out from the very beginning of the game.
We spoke a little bit about REC yesterday, about them being the super team, but this is the real top dogs. Number 1 seed from Europe. You've got so much talent across the board, whether it's the Baron lane with Lonely Kid, support Heste as well, like you said, aggressive play style, and they love to play with these aggressive champions. I'm really interested to see as well, because this is the first time we're going to be seeing them for about 3 or 4 months. It's been a very, very long time.
To put it in perspective for those of you that have been following, we haven't seen Gamelord since the changes to like Hullbreaker, AD carry meta coming back in. Every single meta-defining change that we've had in months was all done after the last time we saw Gamelord play. So
I mean, that opens up so many more things for Gamelord. So I think coming into this finals, we know how strong they are individually, but how are they going to adapt to this new meta?
And I think it's a significant advantage, actually, because they have been scrimming in the meantime. Like, they've been practicing, they've been preparing, but nobody has seen what they're good at, what they're bad at, what they need to ban. As we head into our first picks and bans against Parla, our first champion for me, though, that they have to ban away, on the side of Parla, away from Gamelord, is Rakan. Hester, I will go on record and say, is the best support in the league, and Rakan is his best champion. I feel like he solo wins games on that champion.
The problem is, though, is if you ban out Hester, we saw in the WREC as well, is that teams banned 5 champions against Hester before. And he still brought out Nami, which was still one of his great champions. He was still landing bubble after
He's playing
bubble.
aggro!
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really matter, I think. It's the crazy thing about Gamelord is that you can try and ban them out, whether it be Hester, whether it be someone else as well. You can try and ban them out, but they've always got something in their back pocket. They've always got something new that they can bring to the table.
And for people that perhaps haven't seen a whole lot of Parla, when we saw their finals against NASA, Parla were a little bit slower. And when I say slower, I mean they were receiving the play from NASA. They were kind of absorbing a lot of engages, playing around the play style that NASA were going aggressive. So I wonder how that's going to match up against Gamelord, who are very quick. Like, very, very fast with Zefta out of the jungle.
I totally agree. I think you can say that like Parla gave NASA a lot of respect in that final, in the Turkish final. But even though they gave them the respect, when it came to them team fights, when it came to the Dragon team fights, they were way far above and beyond NASA, really. And they even went 2-0 up in that final against NASA as well. Unfortunately, they got reverse swept and they had to come through the last chance qualifier in Turkey. But that's the great thing about Parla, is I think they're team fights, but when you come up against Gamelord, and especially with this new hull breaker meta now that you've mentioned as well, is that it's going to be so difficult because you've got Lonely Kid. We saw what Random could do yesterday. I think Lonely Kid could even go above and beyond that.
There is the Rakan ban to round us out, so Parla focusing 2 supports with that Camille going from Lonely Kid. Nothing too surprising from Parla. Gamelord, their read right now is remove the Senna from Senegalio. It does have a decent amount of pressure. Olaf from the jungle, Akali away from Ruiz. Potentially we've seen Lonely Kid, I believe, take that up into top lane in the past. Irelia, we've seen it raise high in priority. Now this, of course, can flex jungle and in the middle lane. Zefta on Irelia sounds really scary.
Yeah, that is a very scary pick. I don't think he's picked up a lot. Like you said, it's come up pretty much recently.
This week, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think Irelia's always been quite strong. I think she did receive a few buffs in the last months before we saw Gamelord before, and that's kind of why she's risen. Like you said, being played in the jungle, mid lane, even in the Baron lane as well. This could be a Lonely Kid pick as well. I like how Parla have taken away the Galio. The Galio was such a huge pick, I feel like, for Gamelord in the WREC regular season. For Heste, you know, with the roams as well, him allowing to jump onto and protect the rest of his team as well with the ultimate, but the Gragas pickup as well. This could potentially be Gragas support. We have actually seen it in other regions as well, but it also could go maybe potentially into the mid lane with Ruiz, or even the jungle as well with Zefta.
So Redemption is going to show us Varus. He's played a whole lot of Corki as well as mages. We saw some Varus out of Redemption too. So early game focus for Gamelord from that bottom lane so far. Diana actually making her way through the draft. We haven't seen a lot of Diana bans this weekend so far, but in the regular split and the last chance qualifier, we saw a ton of Diana on the ban bench. Yuumi banned, not exactly the champion that I always think of going with Varus specifically, but of course Yuumi Irelia sounds pretty scary. Yuumi will help Varus in lane, that kind of thing. So no surprises that we're keeping the focus down on bottom lane for the Hester bans. It's also not really a Hester champion, if I look at it. There's a lot of the engage. We heard DB on the analyst desk talking about the Alistair, champions like that.
Exactly. I think it's more the aggressive supports that you need to try and ban away from Hester.
Like Nami, right?
I mean, he can flash in, he can bubble, he can flash Tidal Wave as well, but I think Yuumi just as a champion overall, like you said, not really good with the Varus, can't really get paired with the Varus, but when it gets into the mid and the late game, you can jump onto Irelia as a Yuumi, and when you have an Irelia in the back line, dealing that bonus damage and getting all the healing and the extra attack speed as well, is very scary. But there's the Alistar as well. There's another aggressive champion taking away, and again, 4 bans over to Heste.
Yeah,
again, it just,
respect.
I feel like it happens every game against Gamelord, but Heste always just comes up with something. But I'm curious to see what he brings out this time.
I think Parla need to now respect Lonely Kid and pick their AD carry here, or at least their bot lane carry. And I think you can't afford to let Lonely Kid see your blind pick top lane and then just have whatever he wants into it. Corki makes sense, similar thing. What I would say about Parla for now is if they don't pick a winning top lane, they're waiting for a later part of the game. Corki needs time, Jax needs time, Diana can team fight in the middle of the game, but giving Gamelord Varus plus early game plus a snowballing jungler like Irelia is dangerous if you give him a winning top side.
Yeah, there's Darius as well. Darius is an interesting one because Darius we haven't really seen too much of. Nope. I think we only saw him potentially only once yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
I think only once. So kind of fallen out the meta a little bit. In the most recent patch, he did get a nerf to his attack speed, so he's not going to be attacking as much. And there's Iona. There's the aggressive champion that we spoke about with Heste. A lot of single target focus, I feel like, for Gamelord. You've got the ultimate from Iona, you've got the Chains of Corruption as well from Varus, and then it allows, you know, Irelia to jump in, Gragas to jump in, and also Darius to jump in as well. But I think the big part about this draft for Gamelord, which I quite like, is that we're going to see Ruiz on Gragas, which is not really a champion that we really see Ruiz on. Ruiz is normally this like control mage, sort of more passive, I guess you could say, mid laner, but on Gragas, you're going to be seeing flash engages all the time.
Right at the beginning of the split, I felt like Ruiz had a decently sized champion pool. Like, even pre-WREC, we were seeing him play Fizz and Zed when we were casting Purge before the tournament even started. And as a coach's handshake, I think what I wanted to say on that point from the Gamelord side is, later on, Ruiz started defaulting back to Ahri, and I know the analyst desk will likely talk about this later. I'm glad now to see the Gragas. We saw like an Olaf out of Ruiz in the season. He was forced onto a Lulu in one game that didn't really play out. So this, I think, steadies a little bit of those, not concerns, but just our talking points about where Ruiz would be coming into this tournament. We know how good he is as a player. We know how individually strong he is, especially in an offline environment. It was always just a question about the draft, and we've had it answered here. He's playing the meta already.
Yeah, exactly. And for those who don't know at home, Ruiz was in that Team Queso roster that went to Horizon Cup last year as well. He was the one that was playing in mid lane for Team Queso last year. Now is over on Gamelord with Lonely Kid and Heste coming in as the kind of the new players for Gamelord. We've seen this roster for quite a long time, but at the start of the year, this is kind of new roster that they put together, and they were trying to win the whole tournament, and they did. They got #1 seed in Europe now, and now they're going to look to try and take down Parla in this first series of day 2.
Ooh, Zefter, did he spot? I don't think he actually got vision of Bambi, and Zefter's been taunted into the bottom lane. He's flashed away, will keep himself safe. Hester getting a very risky ward, but doesn't get punished for it. Redemption is here as well, and Parla are trying to take away the Krugs, because there's a lot of experience there. They want to force the flash out. As I believe, yeah, that was Bambi flashing away. I don't think Bambi got too much from that, but they were trying to disrupt Krugs. And something I know that yourself and some of the other analysts were talking about is how important Krugs actually are right now. Like, there's a lot of experience in that camp, a lot of extra gold compared to like where Scuttlecrab used to have priority. So even an invade against Krugs tells you how important they can be.
Yeah, definitely, because most of the time with junglers now, sometimes they like to start Krugs, go into red buff, go into Raptors as well, and that kind of sets up that either full red side clear or either the full jungle clear as well. Irelia versus Jax, I'm not really expecting this crazy Scuttlecrab start, because I think both these champions just want to farm up a little bit. They don't want to exchange and really do much in the early game. You can see the vote at home. That is a pretty big vote for Gamelord.
That is a massive vote for Gamelord. Bambi's health is really low going through his jungle clear. Can Jax do blue that low with... Oh, his smite's going to come up, so he should be fine. But, like, look at how low he's getting off this. This means even if he full clears, he's going to have, like, no presence on the map for a while.
I mean, he's already pretty much a level down as well. Zefter's already on the opposite side of the map. He's already full jungle cleared. Cleared the red side of the map, sorry, yeah. And Bambi has only done 2 camps so far. He's now going to get the Scuttlecrab in the bot side, but Zefter, this is already a pretty big early lead, and that early invade by Parla, I like it. I like that they're trying to play aggressive, and they're trying something new, trying to put Gamelord a little bit out of touch, really. And we're going to be seeing how Gamelord kind of counteract that. I mean, they've done well. They defended the early invade. They've now got Zefter ahead. Bambi actually has to go back to base. You can see Zefter's already on the blue buff as well. He's going to carry on clearing that. That means that Zefter's just going to get a full jungle clear with the Scuttlecrab as well, and that's probably going to be level 5.
Yeah, that's more than you should normally get from a clear. I mean, of course, Zefter, I think he lost a little experience off that first set of Krugs, which I think that's what Parla were trying to bank on. But Parla's composition itself does what I expect Parla to draft towards, which is if somehow we can hold through the early game, we can look to get an advantageous fight when our composition comes online. We have control of the late game, and I don't think there's much a doubt about that. Like Varus' early game, Darius team fights in the mid game, but later on is not exactly that much of a monster unless you get like 4 resets in a fight. That's how you have impact on Darius. It's only really the Irelia that if she gets unstoppable, I think Gamelord can work around as the game goes late.
I think the good thing about Parla is that even if someone does get jumped on by Zefter, they have that Galio ultimate as that sort of protection, even though the magic damage and that magic shield is not going to do too much. But actually, Lonely Kid is given so much respect here. I feel like he has no vision at all.
I mean, I don't know who showed on Crab Vision. I don't think they would have stepped into it. But Parla have had 3 people up here for a moment or two. And I mean, Lonely Kid, playing respectfully, knows that basically the only way that Gamelord lose this early game from this current position is by Lonely Kid getting dove. Ruiz is pretty far ahead in the middle lane. We know that Zefter's had control in bottom lane with the way that Redemption and Hester have pushed out as well. Like, for Gamelord, it's about just reading the map state. And this is a little slower than we normally expect from Gamelord, but I think it's a careful first game for them on the stage. They were winning in 12 minutes in the open bracket.
I think it's just kind of just staying a little bit calm. You know, it's their first time on stage. It's the first time they're playing a competitive game for a few months now. They're just trying to probably feel the way that Parla are going to play as well, because they might have scrimmed together before. Obviously, I don't know that, but in terms of competitive games, this is the first time they're playing against each other, so maybe they don't know too much about each other's play styles. But if you're Parla right now, especially because what we saw from them from the regular split as well, you'll take this early game. You know, normally with Parla, they like to play a little bit passive in the early game, or when it gets to team fights, that's really where they shine.
Yes.
And they've done so well so far. And they're actually going to look to go towards this dragon. They're not going to start it yet. they are potentially.
Gamelord are
Zefta's going over here as well, yeah.
Yeah, Gamelord are going to contest because they feel like they've just hit one item. Like, Manamune completed at least, you know, the unstacked version for now for Redemption 4. Varus has a little bit of that spike now for fighting with some damage in his kit. This is slow. Good explosive cask is going to hit on all three. Put Guys and Bambi in a real bad spot for first blood. Galliowald's going to come down on top, but the health bars are just a little bit too full for Gamelord. It was looking good for a moment for Parla, but can Cyrax do anything about it? He's got a double kill, and he is looking for another. Flashes away as Cyrax is going to be able to get out. Gamelord, oh, catch on to Cyrax. Can they get him before he gets in? Cyrax drops, and it's 5 kills across the board for Gamelord as they take Dragon 1 of the game.
Ace, complete ace by Gamelord. I feel like Parla, they started off this dragon, but look at Corki on the mini-map in the top left-hand. Corki is nowhere near this fight. Absolutely huge explosive cast by Ruiz, and that completely splits the team fight up for Gamelord. They're allowed to split it up. They can do really well. They can pick off the members of Parla, which is what they do. They use the chain of corruption really well, and Zefta just does Zefta things. Just jumps around during the entire team fight.
We're back right into another fight. Apprehend comes forward, and Bambi... Uh-oh, that is not a good situation for Bambi to be in. This has been a rough game, even from the invade that Parla made. Bambi has been on the back foot, and now he's really in trouble.
Yeah, with this Jax, you normally don't want to play too aggressive with the Jax because you want to farm up, you want to try and get 2 items. I don't even think he has 1 item yet.
No, he just picked up Stinger.
Yeah, he just picked up Stinger, so he's going for 24, which is a very, very expensive item for Jax. But normally you go for Blade of the Ruin King as the first item.
Gold.
But yeah, 2,000 gold behind now. Triple kill for Zefta in that dragon fight. As mentioned, Gamelord got a complete ace around that dragon as well. They did pick up the Rift Herald. Bambi has set up the Rift Herald, but now they're going to try and dive in the top side. Solar Flare does miss onto Katsune,
and now Gamelord are a little bit far up with no minion wave and Parla closing in. Good Moonfall. It's going to pull 2 in. Lonely Kid is in a little bit of trouble, but Hester is going to body block for most of it. Zefta has the damage on top of it, though. Hester will fall. Zefta has to back himself away. Redemption Chains of Corruption is at least going to buy some time. 2 drop from Gamelord, but they punish Bambi again. Still this time, I would say a win for Parla there. They pick up 2 kills and deny the push.
Yeah, they deny the push in the Baron lane. They protect Katsune from the tower dive, and they get 2 kills for it. They get traded in a 2-for-1 situation. A little bit over-aggressive by Gamelord there. They weren't in a comfortable position. Nakrez and Bambi jumped in. They were able to use the Dyna ultimate as well to group the members of Gamelord together, and then follow that up with Katsune as well, with so much damage on the Corki as well.
And I was about to say that players like that from Gamelord are normally what they're so good at. They're so good at setting up those dives, but then I looked at the minion wave, and it was so far away from the tower as Hester used his solar flare that I'm like, that's uncharacteristic for them. That's a little untimed. Normally, they're really good at making sure that when they're diving under tower, it's quick in and out, and you're done. You get the tower on the back of it, and you extend your gold lead. So a little bit shaky in that moment from Gamelord. Again, I'm not going to make excuses for them. They are the best team in Europe, and I think we're going to see them settle in. They're still ahead in this game, but against a team like WREC, I think that's what we need to see Gamelord work through in this first couple of series in the group stage to get themselves back up to that top tier that we have come to expect from them.
Yeah, they definitely want to. They just need to feel a bit more comfortable on stage as well, because it's their first time, like I mentioned, on stage. Maybe a bit of hesitation here and there, because Hester used a solar flare a little bit earlier, didn't catch out Corki in the end, so maybe a little bit miscommunication as well. And Bambi has finished that first item, but still over 2,000 gold behind. You already have the Divine Sunderer completed for Zefta as well. In the mid lane, Ruiz going for the Lunan Zeko. You got Diana with Rod of Ages, no real surprises there. And then across the board, really, no other surprises. You can see that Garen, Cyrax is actually going for a little bit of a more tanky build, potentially Sunfire Cape with that Bambi Cinder as well. Normally we see like Dead Man's Plate for the extra movement speed, but just wants to be that frontline tank for his team, so the rest of it can follow up as well. But we're going to have a look at the Coca-Cola pop-off, which is going to be them just cleaning up this team fight. This was just right at the end of the previous replay that we saw before. Just a great team fight overall, and just a little bit of a miscommunication really by Parla, because they started off that dragon before, but they weren't able to do that much. But you can see that like
Zefta's happy. Ruiz doesn't care. Ruiz is like, I'm assisting this game. I'm 0-0-6 at this point. One thing I noticed from Bambi, sat around in top bush. This is what Parla do a lot in order to make sure they can get back into a game, is they'll sit in positions that you're not expecting them with small groups and try and get individual catches. they're trying to do it around Bambi, and now they've utilized Rift Herald in the top side, trying to funnel as much gold back into that Jax. I think that's a little bit dangerous because he's kind of, you know, unbalanced on the beginning of the game anyway. He's so far behind that focusing on him might be a little misplaced. It might be worth getting Katsa some of this gold as he was forced to package away, because I think Corki is probably going to have to be the one responsible for carrying this late game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've got the Diner, but the Corki is the main damage source for Parla in this late game with Bambi as well, if he's able to jump in. But Gamelord are just completely controlling all these neutral objectives right now. They got 2 dragons. They lost the first Rift Herald, but they had full control of that second Rift Herald. But interestingly enough, in this game, 9.5 minutes in, and the first tower went down to Bambi in that Baron lane. That's a very, very late first tower, and I think that just shows how passive really this early game is. You had that one team fight around Dragon, but other than that, there's not been too much. Saying that, Ruiz.
Nacris is going to dodge out some of Ruiz. Oh, Ruiz doesn't even hit the explosive cast. Taunt is going to get missed out by the stasis. Moonfall comes through, and a little bit of a misplay out of Gamelord in the bottom lane, and Parla actually utilized some of that Galio mobility to get down to the bottom lane. And I was going to say, as we see Varus come into the lane, I think this is one of the reasons why we haven't seen a whole lot of Varus is it's a little slower to transition movement around the map. It's a lot about going into mid lane, pushing it out, recalling, going to the other lanes, whereas like Galio and the rest of Parla can cross distance very quickly.
Yeah, the Galio ultimate was huge there. Unfortunately, Ruiz did miss his combo. Maybe a little bit of nerves kicking in for Ruiz a little bit as well.
He's just not used to playing on this ping, you know, whatever. Again, that's me making fun of excuses.
He did unfortunately miss that flash combo, which was huge, which allowed Galio to just follow up afterwards. Then Nacros with the ultimate, Bambi as well. And they used that tower dive really well, but Lonely Kid...
We don't get to see the end of that. Lonely Kid's going to pick the fight. We're going to see, I believe it was Zefta coming up through the river to try and get that. Flashed over, gets the execution with the passive. Didn't even need the ultimate. It won't reset though, so if there's another team fight, of course, there's a little bit of impact there. Parla doing a good job of pushing this turret down in response though. Rift Herald in the middle lane will break open the map in favor of Gamelord through that mid focus. They already have one tower from the top lane.
That's a Lonely Kid. We know Solar kills all the time. Solar killed random as well on WREC during the regular season, which is one of the reasons how they beat WREC 3-0 in the regular season. And he's done the exact same as well. Like you said, good response by Parla being able to take that bot lane tower as well. But Gamelord realized that and they open up that mid lane tower, which allows them to now rotate around the map. A little bit of a gold lead in the moment, about 3,000 gold lead for Gamelord, but this is honestly not as dominant as what I thought coming into this.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair point. Is that like I was memeing that it's going to be like speed running for Gamelord. Maybe this is game 1, maybe game 2 will look different depending on how this one goes. Not quite as dominant. That's a hull breaker on Darius. So that's solo lane Darius like split push. One item I quite like though, spam a lot of Varus. Cyrilda's Grudge. It doesn't make you as strong this early on as solo carrying, but setting up your team, Cyrilda's is really annoying to play against. We've talked about it a lot in general with Varus, but that slow is painful to get away from.
Yeah, with Varus, with this build, you go for the man immune, so you can just keep spamming your abilities. You spam your piercing arrow. The piercing arrow then gets slows as well. You also have... You have a slow already on your third ability, but Serrated Grudge helps afterwards. But Cyrex could get caught again.
Yeah, he's tanky, so it's going to take a little while with that Galio ult as well on top. Cyrex is desperately trying to survive, and they get Zefta for the shutdown. And this is Gamelord maybe overextending a little bit. Solar Flare came through, and Darius was cutting back through the jungle, so Parla will back themselves away. This is exactly what Parla did against NASA when they took 2 games in that series, was they slowed NASA down and forced them into fights that Parla could turn.
And again, it's just a little bit of an over-aggression. It was Heste and Zefta trying to catch out Cyrex, but you're against a Garen. Cyrex is on Garen. You're going to take a long, long time to kill him, even if you are in Irelia as well. Irelia doesn't have Blade of Ruin King as well, but this dragon could be crucial. I think if Parla take this dragon, it's really, really huge for them. They do take the dragon now. So now Gamelord are not in a situation where, you know, if they have 2 dragons, if they potentially got a third, that Elder Dragon would just be game end.
Yeah, and for once, Mountain Drake, I think, will have a little bit more importance than normal, because this composition that Gamelord have does struggle against tanks, especially when you're going like Hullbreaker Darius. You're not getting anything that can give you extra damage. As you said, no Blade of the Ruin King for Zefta. He will have damage. Gamelord will have damage, but there's more health effectively to chunk through, and Varus hates moments like that.
Exactly. I mean, Varus is just going to be poking, but the extra shield, a little bit of a shield that you get from Mountain Dragon is going to deny some of that poke damage.
Yeah.
The slows and everything is still going to be impactful, as you said already, with Soraida's Grudge. But yeah, Zefta's build is, you normally see Bladed Rune King on Irelia. I think he went for Wit's End as a second
Double
item.
survival item.
Just to kind of, because you can see like Diana and Corki, I think Zefta realizes, and kind of we mentioned it as well, is that Corki is going to be the main damage source in this comp. Also Diana as well does a lot of magic damage, so going for, like you mentioned, more survivability with that Sterix gauge on top of that as well. But plenty of stasises across the board as well, no surprises. And
Gamelord are going to back away. Big chains of corruption, and this goes to what I was about to mention for Gamelord is I think they have to play this game through Lonely Kid now, where the rest of Gamelord pick 4 on the other side of the map, and they play around disengaging fights and allow Lonely Kid with this Hull Breaker to just, you know, buff up as many cannon minions as he can. He knows he's already got the 1v1 against Cyrax, and you do the work on the solo lane. That just means Lonely Kid has to play carefully that he doesn't overextend. He's got to realize that Nakres is coming because this won't be a 1v1 for much longer. Lonely Kid knows it, he's backing away. This is exactly how Gamelord need to win this game from here.
And normally in this situation, if you're Cyrax, I feel like you have to build Hull Breaker yourself.
Right.
Because when you're in a situation where you've got Lonely Kid that's already taken tier 2 tower, he's then potentially going to try and go for the inhibitor tower. Cyrax needs to, and there you go, he builds a Hull Breaker now, Cyrax.
Disengage from Gamelord. They know what they've got to do. This is how they have to play it, is they have to at least tease the fight. This is a little too far forward from Redemption as he nearly got caught by Guys, but there's the damage down onto Bambi as Bambi has been behind in this entire game from that failed invade early on. Guys, it's going to get pulled back in. Hester, low health, but flashes forward for the stun. Double arrow connects. But it's not quite enough to get the kill. Again, it's creating pressure for Lonely Kid. Parla, no, it's taking down. Lonely Kid will die to the tower, but look, there's enough pressure for Gamelord to push another tower. It's not quite as clean as Gamelord would like, but the game plan is in effect.
100%, yep. They did what they needed to do. They disengaged. They tried to let Parla go towards them, and that's what they want to do. Then use the Chain of Corruption, use a Solar Flare afterwards. You get that crowd control online, and they just completely bursted Bambi, who's, like you said, has been behind this entire game, struggled since the very start. That early invade that they tried to do towards the Golems didn't work out for them, and since then has been behind Zefta this entire game. And Lonely Kid now, again, another solo kill, does die himself as well, but Lonely Kid is just absolutely destroying Cyrax at the moment. As I mentioned briefly before that play, Cyrax has now picked up Hull Breaker, which is huge now for that split push, because when Lonely Kid has Hull Breaker, when he's split pushing, you can't really do that much if you don't have Hull Breaker yourself. You don't have the extra resistances on your cannon minions.
So in that regard, it's kind of like a deterrent, right? They cancel each other out in that situation. Yeah. So now you're just down to the pure 1v1 of who is stronger, who is further ahead. You've taken away some of that extra addition. Hull Breaker is a really interesting addition to the game. We haven't seen it on Darius in Europe before. I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot of Darius because typically Darius is a team fighter rather than a split pusher. Like, Darius does tend to thrive where you can get multiple resets. It's not that he can't, and clearly Lonely Kid feels like it's a champion that you can blind pick, which is interesting, and I think going up against random, this might have been punished a little bit more. But I don't think Cyrax has done a bad job for the majority of this game. I actually think Parla have played better than I expected coming into this, but Gamelord adjusted in this game, away from being caught in fights to now stepping back from fights and allowing Lonely Kid to push on the side lane.
Yeah, Gamelord is still trying to step up a little bit, but they're not playing as over-aggressive. Yeah. They're kind of just playing it a little bit more patiently, like this situation. You know, they have the river control at the moment. The Elder Dragon is the big turning point, I feel like, for this game. If Gamelord can pick up this Elder Dragon, or even Parla can pick up this Elder Dragon, it's the Elder Infernal as well. So as you can see, this is Wild Rift. Yeah. They're all grouping together towards that dragon. Interesting enough, Katsei has the package as well, which is only going to be there for 1 minute. So I feel like Parla maybe potentially going to try and get a pick out with this Corki package, but it's going to be so difficult because they don't have any vision right now near the Elder Dragon. So they don't know if Gamelord are starting it or if they're sitting in this bush.
If Parla somehow steal this, this will be devastating for Gamelord. But here comes the engage. They've already gone in with the Chains of Corruption, but look, not a lot of damage on the follow. And Parla think that they've got Zefta. They got him very low. I think it's a stasis out in response. Moonfall will hit 2, but it's Hester that's picked up 1 from it, and Parla is starting to fall on the background. Lonely Kid didn't get the reset, and he's kind of taking a lot of damage from it. Parla are going to back themselves away, but Gamelord, they still have the man advantage. They still have the extra person here. No jungler from Parla. Bambi, no smite, means this should be going over to Gamelord. Parla are going to try and get there, but I don't think they're going to do it in time.
No, they're not going to get there in time. They're going to be able to take the Elder Dragon with ease. No teleports, no wards to teleport to or anything like that. That is going to be the Elder Dragon over to Gamelord. And I'm not too sure if you can hear them in the background as well, but they're feeling the hype. They're feeling the hype.
I know Ruiz was not everybody's favorite person in the world after Origin Series last year, and he's hyped now. He walked onto stage. I was kind of expecting him to kind of like be a little bit more showy, but now it's happening. Now that Gamelord are in control of this game, you can hear Ruiz popping off with Zepter. For those of you that weren't around at Origin Series like me, I heard that Ruiz was very animated in the game, and definitely some of the other pro players didn't take to some of the banter quite so nicely compared to how you might expect.
I think Ruiz is just a very, very passionate player.
He is. He's very passionate.
He just wants his team to do well. We heard from him during interviews as well during the regular season, you know, how he loves this team. He just wants his team to do well. He feels like this team is a family right now, and they're playing like a family, really. You know, they're playing grouped together. They're playing so well as a team, even though this is a very slow, thought-out game by Gamelord, and this is not the dominant Gamelord that we really expected to see coming into this game. This is still something to do, but this is going to be it. This is
that didn't land from Zepter. Didn't get the stun that they needed, but Ruiz with another good explosive cast has bought at least enough time and enough space. Redemption on the back line is going to dodge out the heroic entrance, and look, Guys just doesn't have the health. That's going to be another kill going over to Cyrax, and that's going to be the game. Gamelord, it was a slower start from them, but this is the Gamelord we came to expect. Game 1 going in the books. They're going to be able to push through. Don't need the Baron buff. That's going to be double inhibitors going down, and it should just be clinical to end this one out. Gamelord return to the European stage here at the WREC Finals, and they put Game 1 over Parla already behind them.
You can hear Ruiz throughout the entire last stages. I think they knew after they took that Elder Dragon, Parla knew that they had to try and something. They tried a desperate play with a team fight. They tried to catch them out. But I feel like Redemption this game, we didn't really talk too much about him, but I feel like he was just on the back line the entire time, shooting out them piercing arrows, getting the slows. The chains of corruptions hit most of the time as well. And when you're Parla, when you're a team that wants to try and play aggressive, try and jump on with the Diana, with the Jax, when you have a Varus there, even though, as you mentioned, you know, not that great in terms of rotating around the map, but when it comes to them team fights, can be so crucial.
I think the Parla played decently well in that game as well. Like, I actually had a little lower expectations, which might sound harsh, but because I had huge expectations for Gamelord. I think Parla's game plan has probably been figured out now by Gamelord is the thing, and I think Gamelord will probably bring a stronger split pusher and more disengaged to game 2, and just say, well, let's just not get caught, and let's play the game out, because basically Parla's way of winning is about getting those catches and turning things back around. But that's going to be game 2. That's going to be a couple of minutes from now. We need to head off for a short break as the teams settle in before our second draft of the day. Stay with us, we'll be back shortly.
Push your flag until you see a breakthrough. That's right. Come on. Why? You know we're gonna break through.
Hello everyone and welcome to the WREC Finals. We are back from the first game versus Parla and Gamelord, and yeah, it was a victory for the favorites, for one of the team favorites to win the tournament, but it's a matter of fact, Rio, that Parla had it there. It feels like they could have won.
Yeah, I mean, they were really aggressive in the early game. I like to see an underdog team like this try and make things happen from the very beginning of the game. They had a nice invade. It didn't really work out because Gamelord responded very well. So, well, I like the attempt, but, I mean, it didn't work out. At least it's nice to see that they're not afraid of Gamelord.
Yeah, definitely, because, I mean, we had some massive plays from the side of Gamelord. Carmen, Ruiz was incredible on the Gragas.
Yeah, I mean, coming from Ruiz, I was expecting him to play something like Nazazin, which is one of his specialties, particularly Ari. But when he came into this game, I was also thinking about the synergy between him and Andres in Team Queso, and him and Zefta in this one. And I feel like this change of pace, this change of like meta has really benefited him. The ultimates, the explosive casts we've been seeing during this game have been amazing, and the concept that I had of him as a player, of a really aggressive player, turning into more of an utility kind of mid laner, has been very favorable in my opinion.
Really, I would say that all the explosive casts were so impactful, and also he was paired with this amazing Irelia, like, you know, Irelia has been massive. Not only the engages have been really amazing with the Vanguard's Edge, but also we have to talk about the priority and how impactful this champion is.
Yeah, we've seen from Gamelord they prioritize Aurelia coming into this match, and we've discussed it already that items have been changed in this patch. Divine Sandra on Aurelia has been super strong, and she has been such a power pick thanks to her flexibility, being used in the Baron lane, in the jungle and in the mid lane. And we've seen how strong Divine Sandra first item was on Aurelia in those early game skirmishes. Zefta was doing so much work, not being able to die, like always surviving and doing so much damage overall. So clearly Aurelia has been an established power pick by now.
Definitely, and also, you know, Zefta leading the pace, I would say, Ryu in the jungle. We are just watching that Bambi. Just didn't have a good time.
No, I mean, he went 0-6 this game, I think. We talked about him before the game, that he is one of the key players if Parla was to win this game. Made an early invade, but I think it's really interesting to watch the early game pathing from Chester that led them to this lead. We saw a big bump in the goal lead. They were like 5-6k after just 6 minutes. That was because of Zefta. He started by the bot side, rotated towards the top, and then he put Lonely Kid into a position to succeed. He went bot lane, to the top lane jungle, then to the top lane crab, and then Lonely Kid could play really aggressive in that early state of the game, making Cyrex pretty low, and then when Zefta finished killing bot crab, he could recall and go bot. Parla then tried to dive Lonely Kid in the top lane. Yeah. It didn't matter, because Zefta already got the scuttle crab for him. He had the vision, he had the knowledge to back off, and that put Bambi on the back foot. Zefta was always clearing those camps in the early game. It felt like Bambi was always trying to catch up, but Zefta was already ahead. He already cleared his camp, and even without any kills, Zefta had a 1,000 gold lead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Zefta was amazing. I have to say that it feels like Gamelord struggled a little bit in the 5v5s, and we talked earlier about how good Parla is at team fighting, and not just like that. I mean, they came with a, I think, very smart game plan. The team fights were amazing, and we can discuss as well while we are watching the play of the game of this first match. But yeah, Carmen, I mean, Parla's team fighting has been something to be aware of.
Well, yeah, not this particular one that we're seeing right now, but I will say that Parla's best moments in the game are when they reach the mid game. Early game, quite aggressive, didn't quite work out. Then you get to the mid game, that just putting all the cards on the table, and then we get to the end game, and of course this is what happens. I think they really need to keep starting it from the beginning, getting on track to get to the most powerful power pick, power spike that in the mid game, 15 minutes in, 10 minutes in perhaps, in order to win the game versus Gamelord.
Yeah, I feel like that, definitely. And both teams played an awesome match, but Darkbreaker, it feels like Parla needs to push up a little bit. It felt like, you know, Jax was so behind, but otherwise, they had a first shot.
Yeah, they did really amazing. Surprisingly, the bot lane of Parla matched up super well, and they stopped the over-aggressiveness of Gamelord. Like, we have seen so many times that Zephyr was trying to make plays happen, but they were stopped by the bot lane and also by the mid lane. Like, I was honestly surprised how well Parla was doing in those team fights in the mid game, even though Gamelord had the lead, and they put up a great fight, and the game went to 20 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. Definitely, guys. We have ready Hells for an interview. So, Hells, what do you have to tell to us?
Thank you very much, Noah. We got the manager, Yaman, right here. And the first thing that I want to ask you is, you know, you play always from home, and now they're live on the stage right here, right? Like, how do you feel, your players feel, being live on the stage right now as opposed to being home?
I think firstly they are used to playing together in the same sofa, because in Turkey in the bootcamp they also have the similar setup. But I think it's like they're fine. They're super chill. I was expecting to be more, but they were so professional. I didn't feel anything, to be honest, and they're just doing well.
Yeah, I agree. And talking about them doing well, you know, even though they lost, you were up against Gamelord, right? Like, who's the #1 team coming into this tournament. So how do you feel starting up against Gamelord already?
Firstly, we respect them because they finished top, and we know the player that he used to play in Turkey, Lanli Kid. We really love them actually, but also we show the potential that we have. And like, people were voting that the Parla couldn't do better, but I think we show why they should respect us, because we are the top 2 teams in Turkey. We managed to come here. Also, Nasser played really well, and we have more. We are just waiting to show it.
I gotta be honest, right? Like, I didn't expect this to happen, because you guys actually did incredibly well in the first game. I saw a potential to win. So, you know, you have another game to play. You still have to finish this series, and you're going to be up against Formulation next. I believe that you guys can win. What do you have?
I think, like, we have the high motivation. We can do everything. I'm just like, I'm not worried at all. We know what is our weaknesses, what we need to be stronger. We will do it. That's all.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that was a great interview, and I wish you the best of luck in the next game. So back to the casters to get us into this next game.
Cheers, Hells. Yeah, do you know what? I kind of agree. Like, there's some aspects there in game 1 where I was like, the Parla game plan can work. I now want to kind of see where Gamelord go from the next step. Like, I still stick with my prediction of, like, the Gamelord are going to win this series. I think Formulation becomes a much more interesting series now, seeing Parla from game 1.
I mean, Formulation yesterday did look very, very strong against Unicorns of Love, and Parla do look really strong as well, though. I mean, they're coming up against the 1st seed in Europe, so it's going to be very, very difficult for them, but they're actually quite competitive. You know, the game went on for quite long.
Yeah.
They were winning some skirmishes as well. They were capitalizing on little over-aggressions by Gamelord, but I think you mentioned it during the last game. I think the way that Gamelord adapted during the middle of that game, realized that, okay, we can't play too over-aggressive because they like to catch us off guard. They realized they could play a little bit more passive, then Parla came towards them, and that's where the game really changed.
Yeah, I always attribute this in the way of it's almost like downloading your opponents, right? You have to understand their play style when you haven't played against them before in order to be like, okay, this is how we beat them, and now we go. So for me, what I'm expecting from Gamelord now is to deny the Galio, to deny some of the picks that were allowing Parla to fight quite so quickly, or at least group quickly, and then play at least a little bit safer around risky engages. Like, play a little more controlled, but still quick. Still the Gamelord that we're expecting, where they're pushing the pressure, setting up plays, and just shaking off a few of the cobwebs for this game. For Parla, I think you want to try and get your hands on the Galio. You want to try and get a lot of those team fighting picks. I don't even know whether it would be a bad direction to take the, like, full team fight and go for, like, a Seraphine composition, where you're like, if all we're doing is going to team fight to win, and that's the only way that we can get past Gamelord, perhaps you go that direction. It doesn't have to be the Seraphine, but I think you kind of get what I mean with, like, big team fight ults that all stack on top of each other.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw from Parla in the regular season as well that they're really good when it comes to team fights.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the manager was mentioned there as well. You know, they're confident with each other. They play together for such a long time now, and they have that little bit of confidence. And in terms of picks and bans, Gamelord are going to stay on the blue side, and Parla's going to stay on the red side as well. So Parla picked red side. No surprises really, because red side is really strong right now, because you get to get that flexible last pick. You get the 2 picks instead of 1 in kind of that first rotation in terms of power picks. In terms of bans, everything's still the same right now. I think Senna is still really, really strong. Could be paired in that duo lane. It's kind of a fasting Senna with champions like Galio and Gragas, and again, Karma banned away.
Olaf taken out, Karma taken away, Camille. So if they don't have the Akali and maybe swap out for the Galio. I would be interested to see whether Nakraz takes that Akali. Not going to be answered on this game. It's going to remain how Game 1 draft was. Rakanov as well. There's Hester's basically S-tier champion. I mean, you can add like plus to that for Hester. Yeah, Irelia first pick exactly as last game. I think it went well. Like, it wasn't just about the botched invade from Parla in the last game that allowed Zefta to play through. But I like the Gragas priority. I think this now gives you all that flexibility until the end. It dropped through to second rotation on blue side, and it's going to be secured with the Galio. This is a good start for what Parla want to do. I like this.
Yeah, definitely. They swap out the Jax, and now they pick up the Galio, Gragas instead. They take it away from Gamelord as well. There's the pick for Ruiz. There's the pick that we know Ruiz can play, the comfort.
But now I'm a little scared, because we said in game 1 when Ruiz was like, I don't want to say out of options, but when Ruiz was challenged a little bit in draft, Ahri was his default, and it didn't always look amazing when he was playing it online before. Maybe offline we'll see a little bit of a change up, but this Gamelord draft for 2 and 3 pick, wildly different to every other game we have seen in this tournament so far.
Yeah, Darius, we haven't seen too much. Now picked 2 games in a row now for Lonely Kids. Again, with this Hull Breaker meta, you don't really see Darius as kind of this 1 versus 1 split push champion, but I think you know, a player like Lonely Kid can probably pick up any champion really in the Baron lane and just 1 versus 1 anyone.
Yeah, I mean,
in
Lonely
the entire
Kid
tournament. I mean, he did do well as well against Cyrex.
Lonely Kid really made a name for himself in regards to like putting him in that upper echelon with Random, right? Is like everyone said Random's the best top laner in Europe, and by the end of the split we were like, well, that's kind of like alongside Lonely Kid, and then Acolyte's right up there with him. So yeah, I have a lot of confidence in Lonely Kid with, you know, he's blind picking this Darius. It looked good in the last game. He made a lot of space for his team. Now I want to see how Parla can go up against it. Can they find a matchup that they prefer to the Garen? Because we know Darius Garen can kind of go even for the most part, but Lonely Kid showed he could win this side of the matchup.
Yeah, definitely. I think the later the game goes, the harder it really gets for Garen as well. Yeah. Because of the extra bleed damage that you can get. Garen likes to build just full tank, but then with Darius, that means you can just pull him in. You can just deal as much damage as possible. And then with the ultimate as well from Darius, you just deal so much damage. You saw in the previous game that Lonely Kid got about 2 or 3 solo kills onto Cyrex as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see if they've adapted and if they're going to pick something else. So potentially you've got the jungler in the top lane, potentially, if there's going to be a Nakraz mid Gragas. We'll have to see what pick they're going to be picking out. The manager said they do have some picks up their sleeve as well. They just haven't showed it yet. And
there's
maybe this is one of them. This is the Riven. Another flex pick as well. Again, on the red side, you have this double flex now. The Gragas can go in the jungle. The Riven can go in the jungle as well. I would expect it to be Gragas mid, Riven jungle, and I think Gamelord would expect it to be the same as well.
I think so.
So we'll have to see how they finish off the draft as well. Gamelord, they're going to have to finish their draft now as well. They're going to go for something for Redemption, which is going to be standard. He's going to go back to that Varus, which...
This is just the Leona again, then, if you want to play that out. For a very pick-heavy composition with the way that they're playing it. We don't see a whole lot of Riven in Europe. See a lot in North America and a few other places. Braum coming in, and this is the disengage. This is what I meant about, like, well, now what they've done is Ahri is mobile, Irelia is pretty mobile, has the stun, Braum for the disengage, Varus can kite back, use the Chains of Corruption. So everything about this screams like setting Lonely Kid up on the side lane with the Hull Breaker to push back out, and the rest of Gamelord only take fights they know they can win.
Not only fights that they can only win, but I think it's just making sure, and Xin Zhao, so it's going to be Riven Baron lane potentially.
It must.
Yeah, then Gragas mid potentially, and then Xin Zhao in the jungle. We haven't seen Xin Zhao in a while. We haven't seen Xin Zhao at all in the tournament. I think we saw it a little bit during the last chance qualifier with the Divine Sunderer, Black Cleaver.
But that was only when Andre had 8 bans towards him that we started seeing Xin Zhao. Like, that was not like a tier 1 jungler by any stretch of the imagination. So I was about to go on a long rant about how Riven jungle doesn't get played here, and it might not be getting played here either. But gonna see Xin Zhao come through. Xin Zhao, not exactly the best champion at, like, engaging twice, if that makes sense. Like, he goes in, and if he doesn't kill the target that he finds, and gets crowd control, then he runs away or dies. Like, there's literally nothing else you can do from that situation as a Sin Shao.
And I think when you're against champions like, Varus, Bomb, and Ari as well, when you do dash in, like you said, if you don't kill that champion, you're just going to get crowd control constantly for the whole time. Does have the ultimate, which can help a little bit, especially against some piercing arrows, because anyone that stands outside of his ultimate, he won't be able to take any damage at all. He'll just basically be invulnerable from any damage. So Gamelord will have to definitely jump onto the Xin Zhao when the ultimate is up and available. But very different draft really from Parla, with his Gragas, Riven, Xin Zhao as well. The bot lane is pretty much the same. On the side of Gamelord, you got Redemption in his comfort pick again with Varus. The same with Lonely Kid as well, comfort pick with the Varus with Redemption, and then Darius with the Lonely Kid as well. So a lot of comfort. Irelia for Zefter again as well. It did work well. He did get that triple kill in the early game.
Yes.
That allowed him to accelerate that lead. And we're going to have to see if this is going to be the same. It's actually Riven mid lane, Gragas top lane.
Okay, so let's look at that. Like, Gragas top lane was really popular for a while, fell off somewhat because just doesn't quite fight the lane as well as a lot of the bruisers top lane with like Hullbreaker and that kind of thing through the last chance qualifier. So I'm interested to see how Cyrex can do through that. Riven, don't see it a whole lot in the middle lane. There's a couple of matchups I know that mid laners talk about that Riven can be good into. We heard it a little bit in the discussion with Singed. I wouldn't think it's that good against Ahri once Ahri has access to ultimate especially, but I'm not a mid laner, so that's a matchup that I wonder whether Ruiz is particularly comfortable with too.
Yeah, I think this is basically what's going to happen in the early game. Ruiz, with all the wave clear, is going to be completely fine against Nakros. Nakros is just going to play as passive as possible. I mean, like you said, with the mobility that Ahri has, it's going to be really, really hard for Riven to actually jump onto Ahri, and then there's not really much else you could do. The Spirit rushes away, you can get 3 dashes. Riven also does have more than 3 dashes, but they're not as crazy and not as big as Ahri's ultimate, so she could just use that for a disengage. And again, we spoke about disengage on the side of Gamelord as well. You got Chains of Corruption, the Braum ultimate as well, and it seems like Parla want to go in with the Xin Zhao and the Riven and then follow that up with the Galio. But
this is where it normally backfires on the vote. Is when it's like over in the high 90s, it normally is that team that loses.
Is there anything called a Twitch curse?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think it's going to be. But those 2 abilities you mentioned, the Chains of Corruption, the Braum ultimate as well, the Glacial Fissure, along with the Charm, those 3 abilities, I think, in my opinion, do a good job against both Xin Zhao and Riven, who both are either looking for like single direction flanks or like have one like big way of getting in, and then it's after that that the damage is supposed to do. But if you're charmed, if you're stunned, if you're knocked up as one of those champions, you get much less impact in that fight. It's going to rely on like some really tricky flanks, I think, from Parla to actually get onto the back line.
It is going to be very, very hard for, I think, both Xin Zhao and Riven. Interesting enough, the jungle pass on each side, both of them went for a full jungle clear. Zefter went from bot side to top side, full jungle clear, got level 5, was actually able to get the Scuttle Crab. This is pretty standard now. For those who don't know, the Scuttle Crab did get changed in this previous patch. It does give 800 less experience, so we're not seeing these crazy early skirmishes now in the Scuttle Crabs. Sometimes you see teams like this try and get mid priority with the supports roaming around, but you're not seeing any crazy early level 3 fights unless there is any invades on either side. So it just allows the junglers to get so far ahead early on with a lot of farming, because Zefter's nearly level 6 as well. Bambi's probably going to be nearly the same. Try and get as many items as possible. The reason I want to go back quickly to the Gragas pick, like you said, we did see it a little bit before, but I think the reason why it's kind of fallen off a little bit is that tank Gragas doesn't do really well against Divine Sundra. Right. Divine Sundra does a lot of damage against these tanks. Like Gragas top lane, you normally see him playing tank. You see he's going for Rod of Ages, potentially maybe going Rod of Ages into full AP, or sometimes you see Rod of Ages into full tank. But I think the Gragas top lane is quite clever because Darius doesn't really buy Divine Sundra. You don't have that kind of disadvantage where you're going to be against the Baron laner that is going to be building Divine Sundra. Does look like Ruiz again.
That's it.
This is basically what's going to happen.
That's the interaction right there. It's like Riven starts the engage, Ruiz just goes, okay, easy charm, runs away. Doesn't even have to use the ultimate. Redemption forced to flash out in the bottom lane. Gonna play very carefully, and this is what I'm expecting out of Gamelord, is like respecting and denying the fights as much as they possibly can. Rift Herald has spawned, as is the Ocean Drake. We just got a view of both objectives from our observers as we just crest the 4-minute mark in this game. And Here's where Gamelord in the last game were like, all right, we have Varus, we have the ability to fight. But what I would say is not having Flash on Redemption is going to make them a little bit less stable now than they were in Game 1 at this moment.
Yeah, definitely. It allows Bambi and Nacros to potentially go on to Varus even after the Chain's corruption as well, because if you do get caught at all, really, if you're Varus, you're going to see Redemption playing very, very passive now. There's not really much you can do, but you can see Parla actually sneakily enough going for that Dragon. I don't think there's any vision of Gamelord there, but I think they realized that there was a lot of rotations towards the Dragon, and now they're going to go up towards the Rift Herald. But Parla, they're going to go up there straight away. They still have the Corki package as well. I'll be very interested to see how long Corki has left in the package. Rift Herald's not dead as well.
Rush this. The eye is open, but they can't get it. It was slain by Redemption, but the fight's going to go to Parla, surely, you would think, here as the Vanguard's Edge goes in. Oh, Zefter's trying to pick up what he can from this. It's 2 kills already going over to Parla. It's a double kill for Bambi. Ruiz has to come and try and save the day for Lonely Kid, and the rest of Gamelord as the two of them are standing strong. The team fight from that Darius is going to turn this back around for Gamelord. The charm lands, and it's oh so charming for a triple kill. Lonely Kid's probably going to fall to Nacros on the back end of this. Overall, 4 for 4. 1 Dragon to Parla. Gamelord get the Rift Herald, and the gold has gone to Darius and Xin Shao.
If you just see the player cams right now, both teams are going absolutely crazy right now.
They both think they won.
It was a 4 for 4 exchange. The gold is dead even. It was, I believe it was, who actually picked up the Rift Hold? It was
Redemption, yeah.
Redemption actually picked up Rift Hold. So it was actually really, really close, and it was actually a really clever play, I think, by Parla. Parla's the one early on making these aggressive plays, and you're going to look back at this team fight. Zefter tried so hard to make all these dashes, but again, it's the Galio ultimate. It's the extra protection as well, but Lonely Kid with the cleanup from Ruiz as well. But this whole time, Nacros was just out of the fight. I feel like Nacros, if he was in this fight, Parla would have won it. There would have been no clean up at all, and now they're going to try and look towards its Baron lane. It's going to be the first tower going down to Gamelord. They do still have that Rift Herald available, so they can try and potentially use that towards the mid lane. But Parla, again, they're the ones making the aggressive plays. This is a different Parla to what we saw during the regular season. And they're taking it to Gamelord. They're not scared at all. They're going in the game.
Gamelord, though. They have a strong Darius from this position. Has Protobelt when he wants to use it. There's the execute. Gets the kill. Doesn't get the reset, though, because it wasn't the ultimate. The stun lands onto Cyrex, but it's been traded back in exchange for Zefter. 1-for-1 so far on this.
Oh, he got him over the wall!
He got him over the wall with the ribbon. At this point, Parla, they're in control of this game. 3 kills off that means they're going to be able to pressure this mid lane out. Varus is going to have to wave clear, and for now, Gamelord can't control this anymore.
And again, it's Parla the ones that are engaging. They're the ones that are fighting first. Ruiz did come in from the sideline, but this time he did miss that charm, which I think was crucial for that fight. If you hit the charm, you can get the extra damage on your other abilities as well. Cyrex is going to be able to defend that Rift Herald as well in the Baron lane. Not too sure if that expired or not. We're going to take a look back at the Coca-Cola pop-off play, and you can see, look at that.
Popping off, indeed. I think that was from the previous fight from NASA. Ruiz. Always a character. However, that fight did just go to Parla, and I thought that Gamelord were like, yeah, we can take this fight. Lonely Kid's super strong. Now they're going to go back to not fighting, I feel like. I feel like they need to once again go back to like giving Lonely Kid the advantage on the side lane.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the Hull Breaker is going to be used as a second item here. Cyrex actually has to flash. You can see the BF sword already being built by Lonely Kid. He's 4-2 as well. He's over 1,000 gold ahead on Cyrex. And we saw what Lonely Kid did last game against Cyrex. Solo kills as well. Potentially probably going to be solo killing again. Gamelord going to try to go towards this mid lane tower, but with the wave cleared that you have from Galio and Corki, he's going to be completely fine for now. But yeah, Lonely Kid, Hullbreaker second item, and like you said, I think they're going to play this 4-1 playstyle where they're going to just group together as 4 people, leave Lonely Kid on the side lane, and just use that, because now Cyrex doesn't have the Hullbreaker. Cyrex won't be able to build Hullbreaker, which I think, it can't at all build Hullbreaker, because
it just doesn't synergize. There's no point in getting it on Gragas, right? So, and with Cyrex not having his flash, they're actually having to avoid that 1-versus-1 for a while now, because Protobelt Apprehend, which actually Protobelt was just used by Lonely Kid. I didn't see exactly where it was as I was checking the scoreboard, but that's not available for this fight. However, Parla are going to take this package, is up there. 4K health on this
Oh, it's
dragon.
going in!
That's
Oh,
a big
huge!
taunt lands from Parla, and I think it's going from bad to worse for Gamelord to start this one out. Redemption's going to drop. Double kill comes through for Nakrez, unstoppable on this Riven, and Parla may very well be on the cusp of evening this series up. It's going to be Dragon likely into Rift Herald here, and Gamelord, they adapted their strategy in the way that we thought they were going to need to, but they are playing right into Parla's hands.
My guys on this Galio has been absolutely huge. Multiple taunts constantly. It was the E flash that originally started off that team fight, and the Corki package went across the whole of Gamelord. And then it was Nakrez with the clean up afterwards. We spoke a little bit about how it's going to be hard for Bambi and Nakrez to kind of go into the fight. Bambi's going to get caught here potentially.
Yeah.
He does pick up the Rift Herald though. Don't think he doesn't have flash. He has to smite for the movement speed. He's going to die. It's going to be Heste picking up the kill, which is quite nice.
Yeah, it's a consolation prize for Gamelord. Really, like, they lost a lot from that fight. Like, so even getting a kill doesn't even that back up. They need to be able to pressure this tower. They need to create space for Lonely Kid, but this is how this fight started.
Yeah, it was, guys, if you watch him on the Galio, E-Flash, 4-man taunt, and then the Galio, the Corki package as well. On top of that, you can see there was a little bit of disengage. They tried so well, but Nakrez, the huge ultimate for that double kill as well, and they... This is the Parla. This is the team fight Parla that we kind of spoke about coming into this as well. The whole break is being built by Lonely Kid. He could be completely
Lonely Kid's no flash, no barrier, no proto belt anymore, and no chance of getting out of that alive. And Parla know exactly now what Gamelord's adjustments are going to be and where they need to put the pressure. I feel like Gamelord are playing towards Parla in a way that their composition really shouldn't. I don't know that they needed to fight that dragon. I think they could have handshake on those objectives, avoided Parla, and they've given a ton of gold over to this Riven.
Yeah, that's it. I feel like the pressure's now building onto Gamelord. Now they're at a gold deficit, 3,000 gold deficit now against Parla, which I think is really, really huge.
And actually, perhaps the more important one is not necessarily the Riven, but the AD carry difference in gold. This Corki outscales Varus anyway, and Katsa is in a great position. 2,000 gold up.
Yeah, definitely. 2,000 gold ahead. Has the Storm Razor, has the Essence Reaver available for him. And yeah, I mean, we spoke a little about, you know, in the previous game about Parla, how they like to try and catch teams off guard. They like to group up in these side lanes and get them picks, and they did just then with Lonely Kid stepping up a little bit too fast. But so I wouldn't be surprised if he plays a little bit more passive now. You can see now, look, he's paying the respect now. He's not walking up to the lane because Lonely Kid probably realized that they might be in the exact same situation as what he did before, where he got caught out with the explosive cast, with Bambi coming in as well as guys. So now I feel like Gamelord are definitely feeling the pressure because now they just can't really play that aggressive as what they want to.
Their expressions have changed. Redemption following the first Rift Herald was smiling, he's beaming, happy, like, yeah, we got the objective, even though the fight went a little weird, like, oh, noise from both teams. But this time, Gamelord are settled now. They're focused. They're a lot less kind of jovial about this game because the reality is, from this position, if Parla play their composition out correctly, they scale later into the game, they should win the team fights, and this should be a 1-1 series. Parla actually have done a fantastic job of setting themselves up for a Game 2 win.
Definitely, I think this is a huge surprise, really, for Parla. You know, coming into this, Analyst Desk, we were talking about as well. I think everyone probably at home were talking about as well, about Gamelord coming in as the first seed from Europe. But again, this is their first competitive game for 3-4 months. Maybe then just not used to this, you know, new meta. I think the picks in general are very different to what we saw from yesterday, you know, with Rix and Team Queso. Now we're seeing this Darius, which is not really that strong at the moment with this Hullbreaker. We're seeing, you know, the Ari still. We're seeing a lot of Redemption prioritized on the Varus, which you saw in the regular season, and also Corki as well. We're not seeing these hyper carries that we saw yesterday either from Gamelord, so maybe it's them still trying to adapt to this new meta.
You can see the story of this game as well through the kills plus assists for a lot of Parla's lineup. 10 kills on the board, and there's 10 kill participation on Cyrex, 9 on Katsun, 9 on Guys as well. Like, Parla are fighting together throughout this game. And it's something that Gamelord just can't play around. Gamelord are going to push up topside, though. Hester even going up with Lonely Kid, so going to deactivate his Hullbreaker, but to give him a little bit of security there and allow him to get away.
And you can see they're backing off as well. They're giving the respect over to Parla because they feel like they could get caught out again. But that's 3 dragons now over to Parla. That's huge for them. And when the Elder Dragon does come up in the next 4 minutes, I think that's really where this game could swing either way. Even though Gamelord are behind on gold, we know Gamelord, you know, we know that they can still come back from this situation, but Parla, I feel like they're just in full control right now because Gamelord can't really make these aggressive decisions that they used to making.
And normally now at this point, I'd be looking to, okay, Redemption typically plays a lot of Corki, like you probably have these late game threats. Really, the way that Gamelord have to get back into this game is somehow finding a fight where Lonely Kid goes off, or Lonely Kid somehow plays a side lane and pushes through. And to be honest, this is a whole lot more focused on Lonely Kid than we've ever seen Gamelord play before.
Look at this as well. Zefta's just, he's not even farming or doing anything.
Yeah.
He's actually sitting in the lane with Lonely Kid, and he's actually,
Nacris has found Ruiz. He has the hull breaker as well. Stasis means there's almost no way out of this for Ruiz, and Ruiz is going to drop. Parla say the hull breaker is going to be strong for us as well as against us.
And it's actually Nacris that picks up the whole break.
Yeah, exactly.
So we spoke about, how Cyrex can't pick up. Nacris is like, okay, I'm just going to pick it up instead. And now it's him that's actually going to be split pushing the side lane. But just before that solo kill, I was just speaking about how Zefta was just sitting behind Lonely Kid the entire time. So now Gamelord, I feel like Parla just playing mind games for Gamelord now.
For some reason, my memory is blanking on this. As an opponent, you get the indicator, right, for Hullbreaker. You can see that it's active. So you also can see if it's not active, right? If you know that opponent has Hullbreaker, I'm going to get Twitch chat, let me know. You're all experts, you're all Grandmaster players, so you can let us know. That's something that I would love to find out because that would give away a lot of information, right? If you got a deactive Hullbreaker on you, as Parla are going to push through the top side. Now it's actually going to be grouping into the middle lane as Gamelord have to be careful. This Zinshao will cross distance quite quickly, and Gamelord, they do manage to back away.
The respect that Gamelord are giving over to Parla now, they realize that they're in a disadvantage. If this was normal Gamelord that we saw from the regular season, they've been like, okay, we can play aggressive, we can go towards this mid lane tower, we can get this mid tower, and we'll be able to escape. But now they're backing off, they're giving the respect over to Parla, and now we're not going to be too far away from that Elder Cloud Dragon. I feel like both teams are playing a little bit more passive at the moment because they're both waiting for this Elder Dragon, and that's that huge, massive team fight that both these teams are building up for. So now Nacris is in the side lane now against Lonely Kid, that Hullbreaker versus Hullbreaker, as we mentioned a little bit in the last game with kind of the deactivation and kind of the counterpart of both of them as well. And then Cyrex is in the top lane. But again, you can see that Zefta is not really doing too much. He's more protecting his sideways than actually trying to make plays himself.
This is one of the worries that I wondered about Irelia jungle. And this is one of the first times that we're seeing it really struggle. And obviously, when you get gold generation on a jungle like Irelia, you feel amazing and you feel super strong. But to attribute it to like a League of Legends PC pick, Hecarim was a jungler that needed to snowball the early game and demolished scrims for very long. But as soon as he was behind in games like this, as soon as you couldn't get reliable engages, delete one target, move to the next one, the pace did not favor a jungler like that over other meta junglers. Now, Zinshao isn't a meta jungler, but this pace from Parla has bought time for Katsa to be really strong, Nacris to be really strong, and I just think the Irelia dies so quickly in fights if you're not far ahead to have the items that I don't know whether Zefta's impact is as large as Gamelord need it to be because we're 17 seconds away from the biggest fight of the game, and in my opinion, Parla are in full control of how this goes.
But again, it's Gamelord that are here first. Ruiz is going to go back to the base. They need to be a little bit careful. They're in a 4 versus 5 situation right now. 5 seconds. Bambi's going in as well, but again, Ruiz is still back in the base. So that means that Gamelord have to give over control at this Elder Dragon.
Yeah.
Gamelord did have control, but now it's Parla.
Packages
and
up.
This could be game changer. This could be the game ender right here.
Hester's trying to cut into the river. Will land the ult onto 3. Gets at least some crowd control to land. The package doesn't put damage out, but it's going to split people up. Redemption down in the fight early on, and in goes Guys, and the European winners of the open bracket are getting torn apart by Parla, as Parla are going to pick up 4 kills from this one. They're undoubtedly going to take the dragon, and I think they're about to take game 2 of this series.
Parla again with the team fights. We mentioned it before. Parla, when it gets to the mid game, when it gets to the late game with the team fights, they're huge. And again, it's Guys going in with the taunts. It's the Corki package as well on top of that. Cyrex with the explosive cast. They kill Redemption, and they're going to end the game.
Parla don't even need the dragon. They don't want the Baron. What they want is a game 2 win over Gamelord, and Parla are going to get it and take us to a game 3.
Oh my god, that is an upset if we've ever seen one. Parla take a game away from the European first seed coming into this Gamelord, and this is absolutely huge. You can see that the manager now is telling his players, calm down. You've taken the game from Gamelord, but this series is not over. We still got one more game after this as well. And Parla, honestly, in the first game as well was a huge surprise. They played very, very well against Gamelord, and now in the second game, they take a victory against Gamelord as well. And I don't know what to say. It's crazy.
You know who knows what to say? The 2% in chat for the vote.
They knew.
The faithful, the Parla faithful knew that they were going to even this series up. We are one game apiece between Gamelord and Parla. When we come back, it's going to be game 3 to decide this Group B matchup. Stay with us.
Until you see a breakthrough. That's right. Come on. Why? You know we're gonna break through.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the WREC Championship Finals. We wanted to see Parla stepping forward, pushing further, and we really got that. They took the victory versus Gamelord. It was one heck of a game. Now they are tied, and it's all about the third match.
I mean, shall I say that I did vote for Parla and no one believed me? They were supporting Gamelord. They were like, oh, Carmen, but your predictions are always wrong. Let me tell you. This is what I have to do every single day. But you know what? Today, Parla decided to show up. They decided to take the team fights away. They decided to show Gamelord what a real team looks like.
And I would say that usually it's not, the soft the team, but today the highlights were on Nacres. Sick Riven, that one we just witnessed.
That was crazy. His Riven in the mid lane. I was honestly surprised because first of all, I thought they wanted to put Cyrex on that Riven, because Riven against Darius is amazing, and I wanted to see Cyrex on a strong pick against Lonely Kid, because Lonely Kid in the last game he was performing so well. But then they put it in the mid lane against Ahri, and I think that matchup is also amazing because you have so many dashes that it's very hard for Ahri to follow up and hit the abilities. But in the end, Riven in those teamfights doing so much damage, and he got legendary 8-0 on that Riven pick. But honestly, what's even better with the Riven pick is it's also amazing that he went for 2 items that got introduced with a new patch, Heartbreaker and Divine Sundra. Divine Sundra giving him so much sustain, and Heartbreaker is a good item against Lonely Kid, who had Darius with Heartbreaker, so he could go to the bot lane and keep splitting and stop or even dominate the side lane. But let's highlight Galio, because Galio in those teamfights was absolutely amazing, and Ryu, let's talk about it.
Heste got support gap for the first time in, I don't know, months. This Galio matchup was actually really interesting. We sat behind the desk and we saw Braum being picked at the first time. We were like, this is actually a really good Braum game. Braum is good into melee champions in general, and he has a shield that can block explosive casts from Gragas. So we were like, this is a really good matchup for Heste, and Heste is the best, maybe the best support in this event. Galio said no. Guys, this game was fantastic. Gamelord actually got the first lead. They had a really good fight around the Herald, but then when the second dragon came around, we saw a huge flash taunt from Guys. He used wind up his E, got an E knock up into the 4-man taunt. That was just fantastic, and from that moment off, Parla actually had the pace of the game. They got the lead from that dragon fight, and they pushed the momentum, kept on going aggressive, and they, I mean, rode from that point.
Yeah, definitely. It was amazing engage from the side of Guys. And if we are discussing the draft, I have to say that I was surprised that, you know, Carmen Parla left their area open, but they took the Gragas away. And that was so important because Gragas messed up in the first game every single team fight Parla proposed.
Yeah, actually, I'm surprised about it. I thought it was a really intelligent move. You let your enemy, your rival, think, hey, yeah, you know, just we're not gonna play this time around, and then you go and you pick the champion that you know they are popping off on. Then you move on from that, you use it within your composition, and essentially what you're doing is kind of not confusing the rival, but you're kind of saying, I can play your game too, and I know how to use this as well. It's not something that I'm gonna leave be.
Guys, we're gonna check on the play of the game, and I have to say,
it must be the Dragon Team fight.
If it's not, it's not going to be the
this is going to be the Lonely Kid on that Darius.
This is actually a team fight where you see Ruiz is coming from the mid at this point, and Katz is caught in a tough position. Ruiz is behind him, and now Katz has no way to get out. Katz gets Ruiz kills Katz, and that just allows Lonely Kid to clean up the team fight. That's an amazing play from Lonely Kid, even though I think the Guy's moment is probably even more hype.
You know, this was the highlight for Gamelord, solo lane and mid laner, but it wasn't enough. You know, in the end, this game was Parla's. This is an absolute massive team fight for Gamelord, but this was the closest they were to win a team fight in this map, I have to say. Even though you can check how the Parla guys were celebrating, they were so excited about this game. They are the underdogs when it comes to this game, and they proved themselves, and that's the more important. Right now, you come into the third game extra motivated, and the momentum is so good for Parla Esports Company.
Yeah, I mean, for Gamelord, it's quite important to get this win, but for Parla, it will mean so much. And actually, you know, the third game, Gamelord has 2 options. Either you keep playing the way you've been playing, which works and doesn't work at times, or you try to find something new, because it's the first time you're facing these guys. You want to make it as the first seed of your Group B. Yeah. So, Parla, again, I'm expecting them to be super aggressive, super, you know, methodic in what they're doing, and perhaps take the win away.
I want to ask you, Breaker, because we were discussing about the Arilla pick, and you were so excited about the Arilla pick in the first game. Maybe, do you think that maybe Parla is just, you know, expecting what is gonna do Sefton, because he's always passing towards the top side, giving that support to Lonely Kid, and maybe it's a reason for Parla to track them down?
I mean, the issue wasn't necessarily the Aurelia pick, to be honest. I mean, it's still a strong pick. Obviously he loves to play for the Aurelia, but I feel like the bot lane is more important. Like the prioritization of that Galio, guys on that Galio was absolutely amazing, and I feel like the support gap is much more important, and they need to put Hester a more proactive supporter that engages instead of a reactive support like Braum, and ban guys Galio out. That's what I'm thinking.
Then guys, put Hester on an engaged support. That's what you want if you're supporting Gamelord. Of course, but the fact is, enough chat, guys, because we're gonna dive into the third game of the Parla versus Gamelord, and this time is with you, Stuart. A stress.
Thank you very much, Noah. Yeah, this is the multiverse in which we're in game 3. I think it's like the you know, the one chance thing, the meme from Avengers. So this is the one where Parla can get through. Stress joined by Stuart for a game 3 that we were not expecting to have today.
I think coming into today, I was like, okay, we're expecting probably a clean 2-0 from Gamelord, but I feel like now Parla are the ones that actually have the momentum.
Yeah.
They won the second game, they played well in the first game as well, and now they got to be feeling momentum. But I think at the end of the previous game, you saw the manager and the coach and everyone behind, but it was just like, okay, we need to stay calm, go back into that third game, and then see what we can do.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm going to tread a little bit of treacherous ground, but this is leaning on my experience from working with Mad Lions and the LEC team and the way that the coaching staff work. Is like, when you're in a series and things start going wrong, a lot of the pivoting that happens between game, it has to be quick communication between coaches and understanding how to work on a draft. Now, we saw Parla do that in between game. Now, it's no surprise to those of you looking at the stage, Gamelord don't have their full coaching staff here. They don't have all of their normal resources that they would have in-game, and I wonder how quickly the players can pivot using just online communication with their staff coming to a game 3. I know Gamelord have prepared for this tournament. I know that the one way of drafting they've shown us in game 1 and 2 is not the only way that they can play, but they have to draft differently now going into a game 3, because I think Parla have a good read on what they need to do to win.
I totally agree. I feel like definitely you need to do something differently for your Gamelord, and this is a one thing that we spoke a little bit about off air that they're gonna do differently. Gamelord, the loser of the last game, they get to pick which side they're on. They're gonna be the ones that are on red side now, and I feel like this can open up the draft completely now on either side. That means that Gamelord are probably gonna have a different sort of draft. Parla potentially are probably gonna have a different draft as well, and I think the bans as well are also gonna be different. It's gonna be interesting to see if Gamelord decide to maybe potentially ban away the Galio, and I feel like if they don't ban the Galio, then I think that could be that first pick potential for Parla.
Prepping a red side game for this draft, I would imagine you prioritize Gragas as expected, give it to Ruiz in the mid lane, counter-pick Lonely Kid for top side, pick a safe bot lane that you know can contest, and a jungler that has early game presence. And I think that in the meta we've seen from the games so far at the WREC finals is kind of the mold for playing red side for our better teams, when you know that you have the expected win. And this is the adaptation from Parla. Day one, we saw Gragas red side pretty much all the way across the board, and removing that quad reflex now allows Parla to kind of put the pressure on now, because what does Ruiz go to? The Ahri did not work into the Riven.
Yeah, you mentioned it a little bit before in the previous game. You know, even though Ruiz is his comfort pick, he just didn't perform very well on that Ahri in the last game. Again, I feel like Gamelord are going more towards this comfort than actually adapting to the meta itself, because we saw Rex yesterday adapting to the meta, we saw Team Queso adapting to the meta, but now coming into this, is actually going to be Gamelord that are not really going to adapt to the meta. So there is a few power picks open. Irelia being banned away, Camille being banned away. I think Galio is a big one.
Yeah.
There you go. That is the first pick. I'm not surprised at all. That's going to go to guys down in the support role. Absolutely popped off in that last game as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if Katse actually picks up that Corki again as well, because that combo in the dual lane, especially in that last Dragon fight, was the decider.
I mean this in no disrespectful way, but Galio is very much like macro painting by numbers, where it's very easy to make it work. That Riven, high priority. I wonder, I feel like, you know, blinding that into mid lane, I don't know that we've seen it too much from Ruiz, but I mean, maybe it's an option. It at least means that Nakras can't have it, but first rotation red side, I would be expecting a few other things here. The Yuumi priority is available if you wanted to take it, if it's a pick that Gamelord can play. But Parla, Gamelord's read on the meta is so strange.
This is very, very different to what we've seen from the other European teams yesterday. Riven, you know, like you said, could potentially go in the mid lane. I think it could also be a Zefta pick as well.
And this Ori could go mid instead, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Oriana could go mid lane or bot lane as well. Redemption, I feel like this is maybe where kind of Gamelord can maybe be lacking in terms of what there is. I think the analyst there's touching it, briefly as well. I think the bot lane, Katsei and Guys has played extremely well, but for Gamelord, Redemption is just not really playing these hyper carries, and this is actually a big pick that we didn't actually speak about at all. The Senna now going to go probably to Katsei in the dual lane with Guys as well, and then the Garen again, that tanky front line for Cyrax. So it's not going to be these bruisers or anything like that. It's just going to be Senna in the back line with all the healing, and then Galio and Garen protecting.
Guys has looked good on Galio without gold. Now he might get to play Galio with gold, and he's going to have even more money, and he's going to walk into team fights, well, slam into team fights and one-shot people, depending on how he goes. That's a Jace picked up. So, full topside, potentially, for Gamelord picked up, whereas Parla focusing more on bottom lane. I would imagine Corki goes onto the ban list now from Parla's side, plus the Varus if they want to take it away from Redemption. For Gamelord, I imagine it's jungle presence that we're going to take away. A couple of bans towards the junglers wouldn't be too surprising, with the Jax still available that we saw in game number 1.
Yeah, that's going to be banned away. I'm trying to think of where this Jason Riven can go, really, because it can be flexed around, and I think this is, again, something that, you can benefit a lot from being on the red side. Probably Redemption is going to be picking up the dual lane carry here, unless it's Orianna dual lane, which is another flex as well.
I need to cut you off right now because Rakan was available for Gamelord throughout the first rotation of draft. I'm not going... Oh, no, it's first ban. Sorry. I cut you off for nothing. I'm blind. I'll let you keep going. I was like, wow, Rakan's up. Nope, banned. I already have it written down. Sometimes my boomer brain kicks in. At least I kind of realized it right before you told me I was wrong.
That's completely fine. Mistakes do happen.
Say something intelligence to it, because I've been talking a lot that isn't in this draft.
Xin Zhao, Jax banned away. We saw it from Parla in games 1 and games 2, the jungle picks for Parla, so taking them both away. I think Xin Zhao was actually a pretty nice pick as well in the previous game. Form Bambi, going in and engaging, but then also using that ultimate to kind of split the rest of Gamelord apart. Thresh being banned away as well. We actually haven't got Heste's support yet as well, which normally is a big thing that Gamelord prioritize in their drafts. They're going to go back to Leona from game number 1, so this is a lot of potential, a lot of pick potential, because you can use Leona with the shockwave afterwards and then allow Jason Riven to follow up afterwards. So they're leaving that flex pick. I mean, there's loads of flex picks actually, because you don't know where the Orianna's going, where the Jace is going, or even where the Riven's going as well. And now Parla have to completely just complete their draft, so they're looking for potentially a jungler and a mid laner.
Yeah, I'm wondering what even is available. The Akali was banned out in the previous games. Now we get to see Nacres. I mean, the Riven looked good. Snitch was tweeting in between the games how when Parla had a couple of these key picks that worked very well for themselves, like the Riven for Nacres and guys on the Galio, like they've looked very, very strong in comparison to what we were expecting out of Gamelord. I have to feel, we discussed this during the break, I feel like RICs are the big winners of this series because they are getting a ton of information against Gamelord. And we've been expecting a Gamelord RICs finals, but if Gamelord were to lose this series, there's a chance they end second in the group and therefore would match RICs in our tomorrow series.
They also, if they lose this series, they could potentially be out of the entire tournament.
They could. They very well could.
Because they're going to be up against Formulation afterwards as well. And
Formulation looked good.
Yeah, Formulation
team
did
fighting
look good yesterday. You know what didn't look good though? Was Ruiz Azari last game. And that is going to be picked up again for Ruiz. I don't really like this at all. That means it's probably going to be Lonely Kid Baron. I still feel like their flex is still there. It could be Jace Baron lane, Riven jungle. It could be Riven Baron lane, Jace jungle. I'm not really too sure with that. That means it is going to be Redemption on that AP carry, the dual lane. But normally when you see these AP carries down in the dual lane, that's normally because you'll have a lot of AP damage. But now you have Orianna's AP damage, but you also have Ruiz on AP damage. And I feel like, again, this is where it kind of Gamelord lag. We haven't seen Redemption ever play hyper carries at all. We've seen Vayne now and then, but Vayne could have been a decent pick, against Garen, against Galio, but maybe Vayne's dropped off a little bit in the meta now. But, we saw Tristani yesterday, Caitlyn yesterday, all these other hyper carries, and Redemption just doesn't feel like he's comfortable on.
Yeah, I feel like we saw Rix play a game of Orianna, but I think it was out of mid lane. I know we saw Morgana bottom lane.
That was Tristana on Doom in the dual lane, and then Snitch was mid lane with Orianna.
We saw some Ziggs yesterday, we saw some Morgana, but that was Queso taking 4 supports for Andre, and that didn't work. You know, if I didn't have faith that they were scrimming on the new meta and the new way of playing around bot lane, I would feel like this is Gamelord being a step behind where you would expect them to come in with their draft and what they're picking, which is strange. I'm kind of having trouble internalizing it coming into this because our expectation is so high on a team that 3-0'd WREC in the finals and just made it look oh so easy.
And it was mainly because of Lonely Kid as well. Now Lonely Kid's going to be on the Riven instead, which is definitely something new from Lonely Kid that we haven't seen before. That means there's going to be a Zefta in the jungle on that Jace. But I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. I feel like Parla actually have a really good draft. You have really the front line, you have the triple front line really, where you got Bambi, Cyrax, and guys that can really jump onto Redemption again, which again is he's playing a mobile carry. Yep. We saw in that last team fight, in that Dragon fight, when you're playing in a mobile carry, if guys can jump on top of you, especially with Bambi's ultimate as well now, and Twitch chat still believes in Gamelord, but it's definitely a little bit different.
There's a 30% swing. It was 2% in the last game. Now 32% of people believe that Parla can come back into this. And I feel like we're going to learn a lot from the first objectives of the game in the sense of, as we hit that 4-minute mark and as we go to team fights, if Parla win the first team fights of the game, I think it's incredibly difficult for Gamelord to turn it back around. Galio does such good work in team fights. Jarvan starts team fights well. Akali cleans up team fights very well. And if that works for Parla to start this off, we might have a very big upset on our hands for this series.
I think we've already had an upset, to be honest.
Exactly.
With Parla taking the game away from Gamelord, but Gamelord's the one playing aggressive.
The aggro Leona play coming through. Ignite was ticking, but Hester has perhaps overextended, still has the flash available. Bambi finds his way onto Redemption, forces the flash out in response, and Hester is going to go back in with the Zenith Blade because coming down the river, Zefta is trying to track down a first blood. He'll get it. He's looking for more. Can't get it, but the charm does land from Ruiz for the second kill of the game, and one more for measure as Ruiz's Ignite ticks and really shuts out the early game for Parla. One kill goes to Nacrez, and that'll help, but Gamelord starting strong.
It was very back and forth. It was originally a Heste that tried to go for the initial engage. Bambi was able to rotate before that and got a little bit of an extra engage, but it was Zefta and it was Ruiz that got the first rotation down. And I feel like this is where Ahri can come up and shine in the early game, because Ruiz on this Ahri, you can push down the Akali in the early game. Akali doesn't really do too well in the early game, doesn't have the wave clear, can't really step up against Ruiz. It allowed Ruiz to roll down into the Dura lane first and get that clean up, get that double kill as well. Now Heste's going in the mid lane.
Yeah, Hester's locked guys down again, and Katz gets hit by Zefta's shock blast. Good dodge on the rest of the damage. But I think this is what Gamelord need to make as the adaptation is. Hester has to be in control of these games, and he's going aggressive.
Yeah, he's playing aggressive. This is a replay again of that bot lane fight. Bambi actually forcing out 2 flashes, forcing out the exhaust as well. But look at this. Nacrez is still under tower, and Ruiz is already halfway down the river. Zefta's here as well, uses a shot blast and the gate as well to get the extra damage. Ruiz as well with the cleanup. Flash charm as well. And you know what was great about that as well? I don't know if Ruiz actually planned to do it, but he ignited the Senna, maybe manually aiming the Ignite onto Senna, because he knew that with the Ignite, Senna can die, and then he can finish off Galio with that combo.
Yeah, he gets the 2 kills instead of all-inning on the 1 to be able to get that. And now, I mean, we've seen a lot of Senna Galio historically in Wild Rift. We've seen it in metas gone by. It's very good at team fighting, and Senna needs time to get into the late game. But if Senna just really doesn't get items, if there's no damage to come through there, so much more work goes on to Nacrez's shoulders on this Akali. Like, yes, there's going to be damage coming from guys, but like, if Ruiz starts snowballing, Zefta starts snowballing, like, these fights will end before Senna can really put out consistent damage.
And that's one thing I wanted to point out as well, is I feel like in this series, Nacrez has actually performed very well against Ruiz,
sure.
and performed very well in the entire series. And on a pick like Akali, we've seen Veos as well do very, very well on Akali. And you can see here, Ruiz with the reaction again. Look at him. He's...
I don't think you need to lip read for a lot of what Ruiz is saying, especially in the first game.
You know what's funny? That was a play where he died at the end. Yeah. He was going crazy that he got the 2 kills, and he was like, Wait a second. I'm dead.
Hang on, I need to focus. I need to put my hand back on the phone. First dragon of the game. Gamelord are going to look to set it up. Zeft already picked up 1 kill. Ruiz had picked up 2 previously, and it should be fairly straightforward dragon, as Rift Herald has been started by Cyrax, and Gamelord are shouting about this, like actually wanting to contest this second objective as well. And again, Katsa needs more time, guys. The ult's there, but he's stuck on Catalyst. He doesn't have a full item here, not particularly tanky, and he will get caught. That's a good lockdown. Big shockwave is going to come through from Redemption to at least hold 1 in place for another kill from Gamelord. They'll back themselves away as the charm does land. Hester managed to flash away. That's a kill going over to Lonely Kid. A double kill for Ruiz, and we doubted his Ahri. We have been saying, is it the pick for Ruiz? And we're finally getting a game where Ruiz is able to have that impact. Big ultimate from Senna will be enough to take that double kill for Cyrax from the Ignite. The tower goes down and it's scrappy, but Gamelord will advance their lead.
And now we're kind of seeing the different play styles, I feel like, for both teams that we were expecting coming into this. Parla have been playing a lot more passive in this early game because you have champions like Akali, like Senna. You know that you can't really take these early game team fights, so they just completely gave up the first dragon. They're now going to try and contest this Rift Herald.
Hester's
but look at
ult's nearly
Gamelord.
up.
Look at Gamelord. They're racing towards this, and Hester's going to look to try and go in again.
Yeah, in goes Ruiz. Charm lands. He stole it, Ruiz! He's doing everything in this game. The offline buff has turned on for Ruiz, and Gamelord have stolen it away.
Beautiful still there by Ruiz. The smite wasn't there, unfortunately, by Bambi, and now Gamelord are in full control. 5,000 gold, but this is back at the replay. This is a Gamelord that we know, playing aggressive, going for these tower dives. The counter engage was nearly there by Bambi, but look at Lonely Kid going back in. He actually denies the jump of Akali to go back in as well. Beautiful knock up by Lonely Kid on this Riven, being able to clean up the rest of the team fight as well. And that afterwards, Cyrax tried to get a kill afterwards, did get a kill afterwards as well, and also the Senna ultimate did get another kill, but in the end, a huge win by Gamelord. They now have a 5,000 gold lead at 6 minutes in the game, and this is the aggressive Gamelord that we expected coming into the series.
Up to 2 towers, have the dragon, they stole the Rift Herald. It's still available for them to use whenever they opt to, so 2 outers have fallen. They will be able to get that through the bottom lane if they want. 5,500 gold in the lead, Gamelord, and where it falls is exactly where they want it. They've got a healthy lead on Lonely Kid, a massive lead from the middle lane. Jungle is ahead as well, 1,000 gold. Across the board, everybody is matching or above for Gamelord, and that's the position they have looked the most dominant from.
Definitely, but we've seen before that Parla have come back before from gold deficits. We saw it as well, you know, again against them in the regular season, against Nasser as well. They know how to play from behind, and they do have a comp that does scale very well into the late game, you know, with this Akali, with the Senna as well. But again, this is kind of the passive Parla now, you know. I think they've realized that they've kind of been a little bit too overconfident now in this third game, and they weren't able to do too much against Gamelord, and Gamelord were able to capitalize on the early advantages. And the
Ruiz just dashed forward. I can see his ult tick onto the first cooldown. He was looking for it, but Lonely Kid's the one in the top lane that has to now fight away from 2. He's going to back away. They backed away in bottom lane as well. Lonely Kid, he's going to pick the fight. Galio is around. Doesn't get hit by the knockup. Cyrax is back, but picture in picture, you can see bottom lane Rift Herald to charge into the tower, and Gamelord are advancing their lead, but carefully. They've learned their lessons from Game 1 and Game 2 and known that if they overextend in the fight, that's when Parla are going to trap them. But Gamelord seem to be a little bit better off this time around.
I think Lonely Kid could get a little bit caught out here.
There's no Galio ult, so that's not going to allow guys into the fight quickly, but it's enough to deter.
I think Lonely Kid now on this more mobile Baron lane champion definitely helps him out a lot. I feel like Darius in the last 2 games, they definitely got caught out by quite a bit. But it's just the bot lane play. I think this is Gamelord trying to get a tier 2 tower. They're at an advantage as well because Galio and also Cyrax on the Garen was in the Baron lane as well. They tried to go for aggressive play again. They tried to go for a team fight, but Heste was just there for a distraction. He went in just to make sure that they can get that tier 2 tower. But as I mentioned before that replay, you know, Lonely Kid on this more mobile Baron lane champion means that even if he does get caught out, then you can still use all your dashes and everything to escape them difficult situations, which on a champion like Darius before, couldn't really do that.
I'm laughing because Gamelord are getting hype about a secure dragon that no one was around from Parla. I'm like, what's going to happen next game? They walk into lane, farm some minions and start yelling, but right now they're going into top lane and it's almost like they're killing minions because Guys has already dropped, and as is Cyrax, and This is the Gamelord we expected. This was our expectation for this series, but Parla have given Gamelord a lot of problems in Game 1 and 2, but I think Gamelord may very well have got themselves the lead to make sure that they have one hand still on that first seed coming out of Group B.
Definitely. Feel like Parla tried to make a bit of an exchange. They did take that tier 1 tower in the bot lane. Doesn't really do too much, to be fair. They only lost 2 kills. They lost that tier 2 tower in the bot lane as well. And, you know, they're 5 towers to 1. They've only taken 1 tower. That's their first tower that Parla have taken this entire game. They haven't been able to really get out of their side of the map. They've been playing on the back foot for this entire game. The Rift Herald is up and available. I feel like Gamelord are going to go towards that, which they are going to now. And they're just going to have full control. And I feel like Parla can't really step forward at the moment.
And an important thing about that is, like, Rift Herald had spawned before they were even recalling. It was, like, right at that time. And I think some people might say, well, why wouldn't you rush it at that point? But for Gamelord, they know that that's a coin flip, right? If you go back, spend your gold, you're so far ahead that this Rift Herald is secure. There's almost no real way that Parla can fight this without trading a lot for it. And Gamelord know it's fine to delay.
Definitely fine to delay indeed, as this is a play, you know, we saw the other side of this fight, but this is Cyrex just getting completely caught out, completely isolated against 2 members of the Gamelord. Not really much they can do, but they were able to get that bot lane tower afterwards. They have that Rift Herald to break that tier 2 tower. This could potentially be 6 kills, but
coming
going
from
in,
Cyrex, but wow, Bambi didn't even get to flash, didn't get to ult, and skating on thin ice in this game for Parla as they're getting routed back to their base. The shockwave will hold them in place, and that's everything going Gamelord's way. It's 3 kills already in that exchange. Parla have started to fall apart in this one. Gamelord have found their strength, and they're going to get their first inhibitor of this game 3.
Looks like the inhibitor is going to go down. You don't really have a lot of weight.
Hester wants in! Goes in off the Zenith Blade. Hester manages to survive on low health. 200 health remains, but it's gone from that inhibitor. Stasis will keep Nakrez alive for a moment longer, but it's not going to be enough to get much more than that 1 kill. It is all going into Gamelord's pocket.
Inhibitor down, another kill as well over to Gamelord, and this is full control now for Gamelord. Over 10 kills ahead now for Gamelord. 2 dragons as well. That next dragon is going to be spawning very, very soon. And I feel like Parla with this composition, they needed to play passive, but I think Gamelord realized that as well. They realized that Senna can't really do that much, has 30 stacks at the moment after 12 minutes, which is not really too much, to be fair. And I feel like Katse hasn't really had the opportunity to really get souls, to be honest, because there was always fights happening in that Duro lane. There wasn't really much going on at all. Like, he didn't really have a moment where he can just sit in a side wave or sit in a mid lane and really collect any souls this game, which means that it just takes even longer for Senna to scale. You got Nakrez as well, who's had a decent game, you know, two kills and 2 deaths. Could get caught out here though.
Hester is going fishing, but there's not really anybody to catch at first. But Nakrez forced out of the Shroud. The Cataclysm is going to deny Gamelord for a moment longer, but Hester cannot be denied from this with Lonely Kid. They're going to set up the fight. Doesn't even get the kill on that execution as Lonely Kid backs himself away, gets the shield, and Gamelord, it's been a whole lot cleaner. They're going to walk towards the Nexus. They will be able to get half of the health of it. Whether they die here doesn't particularly matter too much on this wave. Next wave of supers with 14 seconds may be enough to end the game. Bambi just bought a Guardian Angel. He knows he has to throw everything at this in order to rescue the game. It's a distraction tactic that may pay off because he's bought enough time. 2 seconds on the respawns. No, he hasn't. That's Gamelord advancing 2-1 from Group B. The first series goes their way.
That was not easy for Gamelord though. That was not easy at all. They do pick up the victory in the end. I think that's a big confidence boost for them as well. I think they probably had a little bit of hesitation and a little bit of nerves after game number 2 as well. They did fall to Parla, which I think was an upset, but congratulations to Gamelord. They do pick up the win. It's a very crucial win as well, but now they're going to be up against Formulation as well, which I feel like Formulation looked very, very strong yesterday. And this Group B, honestly, could be very, very interesting coming into, you know, the end of the day.
Yeah. Redemption. I don't know whether Redemption ended with no kills, but he would, like, didn't die and had, like, an assist on every single kill in the game, basically. So, wasn't just hitting people with pillows on that exchange. You know, I think you're right. Group B is an interesting one because Formulation and Parla both have shown strength so far this week, and I wonder whether there's a world in which Formulation either win both series, or we might end up in a situation where we could 3-way tie. Honestly, I think like Parla looks strong enough, and I discounted them so much. that we have to see the rest of these results from the rest of the day to figure out exactly what's going to go on. No longer is it such a foregone conclusion, but Gamelord 2-1 in their first series of the group. Let's head over to the analyst desk to break that down.
Thank you, Stress. Thank you, Stuart. Yeah, we are back. Finally, Gamelord made it. They look absolutely different in this game.
I mean, I think there was to be said that the expectations that we had for them, they have been overturned from game 1 to game 2 to game 3. I still think Gamelord has had a difficult time to find the fitting in going into the series, and the mistakes they've shown throughout the entire games, just, you know, it's something that I will take notes of if I were playing against them.
And I would like to discuss a little bit, WREC, about the draft, because suddenly Riven gained a lot of importance. He was so pivotal for Gamelord to take that Riven away.
Exactly. That's what I really love about Gamelord, that they actually decide, okay, we have seen Nacrus is performing super well on that Riven, and they are taking it immediately away, and they just make it work. Lonely Kid on that Riven was absolutely amazing. He created so much pressure, and both the support and the Baron laner had to try to stop him, but he still popped off like crazy. But on top of that, we have Ruiz on that Ahri, and I have to shout him out because he did such an amazing job. In the last game, he didn't find those charms, but in this game, he found those charms, he made the plays happen, and Ahri is basically, if you land a charm, you get the kill, and you just create so much map pressure, get those objectives, etc.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ruiz was superb on this Ahri pick. It was so important to have him in a comfort pick such as this in this crucial game. And everything started with aggression, Rio. I mean, I love that early game rotation from the side of Gamelord to punish Parla aggressiveness in the dual lane.
Yeah, I mean, the first dive gank from Parla, I thought was going to work out. Bambi skipped the camp to get to the bottom lane first. But an amazing play by Heste and Redemption really caught that gank off. They just both flashed out and it was fine. And then Sefta with amazing timing could clear up the kills, and he killed Katz in the end. And from that point on, they didn't have any more summoners. They were already losing the bot side of the map, and Sefta, you know, got his advantage again. So amazing play by Sefta, but I just want to give a shout out to Parla. It was a really good dive. It was a really good attempt, and yeah, I mean, I feel like they tried their best.
You know, we were demanding because in the last game we saw Hesse on this brown pick, and it was a nice pick though. But we missed Hesse on these kind of champions coming. We know Hesse is an amazing player when it comes to engage the post, and he proved it once again.
Yeah, I mean, the Leona, the Bram are two of his best picks that we've seen during the WREC. However, I'm not so sure if he's going to be able to keep playing these compositions, because at some point you're going to get pushed out of the comfort zone. Maybe you'll have to play something else. And we know that, well, you know, it's kind of tricky, kind of spicy picks going on to the support. So maybe, you know, why not a Sona? Why not a Nasus like we saw yesterday?
They did it. They played a Seraph and Sona once. It was, okay, that's a disgusting duo, I have to say. I had it in league. I mean, it's just crazy. You can play versus that. But the fact is that when you play this kind of champions, this time that WREC, you enable your team to do things. And this time the combo with Orianna was so important for the mid game.
Yeah, exactly. APCs are for a reason in the meta right now. It's just, I feel like Redemption loves to play these type of champions because it fits really well into their draft, and it does so much damage, provides so much consistent damage, and there's a reason why a lot of times teams just go for those AP champions in the bot lane over ADCs just because of the consistency and the teamfight value that they have.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, we're going to check on the play of the game of this third map of Gamelord versus Parla Esports. Play of the game. Oh, there's going to be this team fight in the mid lane. It was a nice attempt from Parla, but in the end.
This is one of these moments where Lonely Kid really shows that he's an amazing Riven player. He understands when to go in, what are those cooldowns, and when is it worth to burn a flash. From this point on, he got a triple kill, and he just really turned up from that moment. After this fight, actually, it was really interesting. Parla spent a lot of resources to try and call Lonely Kid down. let's not let him get too far away with the game.
Yes.
But it wasn't possible. Even though they applied pressure towards Lonely Kid, it wasn't enough. He just applied it right back onto them. He kept on playing Ting Tang with them, and I mean, Lonely Kid, even though, I mean, there's a condition who's going to be the MVP, he played amazing this game, but
Yes.
yeah, his ribbon was cracked.
That was definitely correct, but we were discussing about Ruiz earlier because it was so important for him to be in this conflict league in the area. He even stole that Rift Herald, and that was massive for the Gamelord.
It was absolutely massive. But I don't know if our will keep being open for the next few games now.
I really don't know. Guys, but we stop talking in here in the analyst desk because we have Hells ready for the interview.
Yeah, thank you very much, Noah. And of course, I got the man himself, Ruiz, the guy that just absolutely hard carried the third game on Ari. So I have to ask you this. How are you feeling after winning the very first series of the live event?
Okay, first of all, I feel like very happy and excited because this series was necessary for us, And yeah, excited, happy, and like I want to play the next games, I want to just play the next game and show like the people what we can do in the stage because this game was a very necessary win to them, just for being the first in our group.
All right, yeah, and talking about the next game, you're going to be up against Formulation Gaming, and they showed a really good performance against Unicorns of Love yesterday. So how are you feeling matching up against a team like Formulation Gaming, who we know is also an incredibly strong team in Europe?
I mean, like, we are going to just respect them, like, because they have very good players. But I think, like, this was the hardest match for us because it was the first time, like, touching the stage, playing the stage. So, like, I feel like in the third game, we really felt so comfortable with the stage. So I think, like, we are now feeling so comfortable for play against them, and they need to be prepared against us.
Yeah, indeed. This was a hard game. And, we got to talk about Parla as well, because I think they did an amazing job. So if you have to say anything about Parla, what would it be?
I know all their players, and they're very good person. They play very good and very well. And their communication and their energy in the stage was like incredible. And yeah, they played better than we expected. Congratulations for them for this performance to us.
All right, thank you very much for the interview, Ruiz. Best of luck in the next game, and back to the analyst desk.
We were just watching the keyboards of the game. Guys, yeah, definitely, I'm taking the last race awards. Parla played amazing. They exceeded expectations. And this brings me to the next topic, that it's going to be the Parla versus Formulation Gaming.
Yeah.
That's going to be one.
I think this is going to be very, very intense because I think a lot of us just didn't expect how well Parla would perform. Like, teamfight was, the synergy, the coordination that they had, and even the drafting of Parla was absolutely amazing. So I think this is going to be the most intense match coming up because it's going to decide who is going to qualify for the playoffs. Because right now, this is Group B, second match, and Parla looking super strong. Formulation looked really, really good against Unicorns of Love. So it's going to be very close.
It's going to be a very close series for sure. That one, we saw what Formulation Gaming can do in that play-in match that is just mentioning. And this is like super interesting because I'm taking risk. Well, he considered Parla to be the hardest match they had to face in this group. But guys, thank you very much for joining me in the analyst desk. We're going to head into the second game after a small break.
There's something about games. What you're doing there gives you real chills. There is one thing that can't be stopped. Feelings. And if you can feel it, it must be real, right? And that's real magic.